Hello everyone. My name is Fear Dragon, and welcome to the Skyzo Cup number 10. Today I'm joined here by Master Dog. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing pretty good, and I'm excited for some more Quebec StarCraft, especially now that we're in the 10th rendition of the Skyzo Cup. I actually got to do the last one as well, and it was a ton of fun then, so I'm pretty excited for this one.
Yeah, so am I. I mean, you are more familiar, I think, with the Skyzo Cup, but why don't you go ahead and just tell everyone who maybe is tuning in and not as familiar with it, kind of what Skyzo Cup is.
All right, well, Skyzo Cup is a LAN that takes place every so often over in Quebec City at the Le Skyzo Land Center. And basically it's to help promote the LAN center and also, give the Quebec StarCraft players, and not just StarCraft, they actually run a bunch of cups for different games as well. Just a couple
Hmm.
weeks ago, they ran Dota 2 as well as League of Legends, and it gives them a chance to, come together, have some fun in their own region, and kind of like almost a every half year meetup or so,
Hmm.
as they can't do these all the time, but they try to do them as often as possible.
Yeah, and of course, they are actually sponsored by MSI, so be sure to check out the sponsors. MSI, I'm pretty sure they're pretty easy to find. If you just Google MSI, you'll find them. And of course, we'll be playing a couple of, or well, one video from MSI and kind of about their new book, notebooks, I think, that might be of interest to some of you guys. So if you're looking for a laptop, definitely consider checking them out. With that being said, so we're going to be going into actually a series straight into the winners bracket, I believe. It's going to
Yes.
be, yeah, Jig versus DesRow. So I don't know. What do you think about that? Jig versus
Well,
DesRow.
we have a Jig versus DesRow. We've seen a lot in previous Schizo Cups. In fact, the last Schizo Cup was Jig versus DesRow for winners finals and grand finals, where actually
Hmm.
Jig reset the bracket and then won 2-1 in the reset finals. So,
Yeah,
it's looking to be good.
yeah, I'm looking forward to it for sure. PVZ, always a very, very fun matchup. And honestly, Jig is kind of a weird Zerg player sometimes. Like, he is not afraid to be aggressive. I think that's one of my favorite things about Jig, is that he's not afraid to all in when he needs to, but also just playing like a fairly aggressive or sometimes kind of wonky style.
Hmm.
Whereas DesRow, I mean, DesRow has been on absolute tear if you've been paying any attention to Copa America lately. He's made it over some very, very strong players. I believe I want to say all right. So he made it over Huck. He's going to be playing against Major tomorrow in the finals, and I'm trying to remember. There was one more player he actually made it over. Um, I think it was Cats.
I'd like to
Yeah,
say so.
it was. I believe. I'm pretty sure it was Cats in the semifinals. Now Cats is also a Zerg player that likes to play a little bit wonky or a little bit weird. Um, so I feel like that may actually the fact that he's able to beat Cats in a PVZ may also kind of say or just go to show like his skill level in potentially taking out Jig now in these winter bracket finals.
Yeah. And right now, it looks like we may need to wait just a little bit longer, unfortunately,
Hmm.
as everything's a little bugged, it seems. But
Yeah, I think right now Desro was saying that he was having some troubles, so he's going into the unit preloader,
yeah.
and yeah, I think that we're going to be jumping into the game in just a couple seconds. But what exactly is going to be the first map choice for these two players?
Well, we're going to be getting into Deadwing LE for map number 1. It's a map I actually haven't seen quite a bit personally,
Hmm.
as a lot of players don't actually like this map, but just going to be blunt with it, because it's very, very easy to see the mutual dislike of this map. But some players, they do prefer it, and we are using veto system, so sometimes it can also kind of slip through the cracks,
Hmm.
and especially if it's not their most hated map in the pool.
Yeah, definitely. And honestly, this is one of those really interesting maps because for a while it was the funniest map in the map pool. Oh my god!
Yeah.
So did you catch some of those games where when horizontal spawn positions were enabled for this map?
Yeah, I
Those were
did.
amazing.
It was very interesting to see just one base to another, and then you would just have siege units
Yeah,
just
just
across
siege
it.
tanks sieged up behind your third expansion mineral line to kill off the workers on your opponent's third expansion. Like, go figure. And then Protoss versus Zerg. Oh my god. I don't know how it got to this point, but a Protoss player actually got Tempest out. And it was just like, you're sitting on top of your own third expansion nexus, defending it, but you're also harassing your opponent. Like, why was that even like a map choice? Why would a Zerg player even take that third expansion there? But
I don't know, man. And a lot of people there complaining is like, oh, you should disable horizontal spawns. And in my head, I was just like, why not just expand away from your opponent instead?
I thought about that. I think there were also some other weird and kind of wonky things. Like, there were the destructible rocks that if you took out 2 pairs of them, you are actually still right next to your opponent. Even if they didn't take that third expansion, you were basically right outside their natural expansion. So it became a little bit of a problem. Actually, it became a problem for Protoss players also. Mm-hmm. So I think that may have a lot to do with it. But regardless, horizontal spawn positions no longer enabled, and we have been seeing more cross spawn and actually horizontal or vertical spawn positions. So what that basically means usually is with the cross spawns and the vertical spawns, it's really easy to take third expansions, like really, really easy. And I'm looking forward to seeing like how fast maybe DesRow will try and grab a 4th expansion, because I saw the other day, actually, again, in Copa America, it was Huck playing, and I think that he grabbed a 4th expansion versus a Zerg player by, like, the 10-minute mark, which is absurd, right? That's when Protoss players used to grab their 3rd expansions against Zerg, right? That was... Oh, God.
It was like back in Wings when we still had Daybreak. People were like, oh my god, I can get a 3rd at 10 minutes?
Yeah, this is unheard of. Like, And then there's like always that timing window where if you take it before 10 minutes, you won't be able to defend it. If you take it after 12 minutes, then like you won't have a big enough economy to ever take it. So there was like a Protoss player must take their 3rd between 10 minutes and 12 minutes. And now it's like, well, now players are experimenting with taking a 4th expansion in 10 minutes. And I think it was a little bit more of a greedy play. I wouldn't say that it was safe against most things, but it's still something that you can consider doing on Deadwing. That has to do, again, with the map layout. The 3 bases that you take initially are super easy. That's actually has caused a lot of Protoss players to take that 3rd expansion around the 6-minute to 7-minute mark. And the 4th expansion, you can actually, if you just kind of plan ahead a little bit for it, you can actually start to do like a little bits of wall-ins and stuff for that 4th expansion. And it's kind of tucked away. You can actually reasonably defend that.
Yeah, and it looks like, you know what, enough talking about strategies. Here we're going to be able to try and get in to this first game. It's going to be Deadwing. PvZ, I'm excited.
I am as well. And for those of you who don't know, the Skyzo Cup is actually a French-Canadian tournament, or a LAN event going on in Quebec. And I have a question. Like, I'm pretty sure that DesRow is French-Canadian, right?
Yes, he is.
I'm not sure about Jig, though. Do you know?
He is also from French Canada. You know, I believe for the last one, they actually came up to the tournament together.
Okay. Well, I actually have the wrong overlay for the in-game. So don't mind this, guys. This is only going to be a 1-for-1 game. Normally we're going to be using Game Heart, but I was, of course, casting another cup or tournament recently. So we're going to go with the WCS EU overlay as we spawn down here in the bottom right-hand corner of the map on top of the blue Zerg player. Representing Team Gravity, it is Gravity's Jig.
And over on the top right, representing Asus and himself, it is DesRow.
Alrighty. Mr. Doc. PvZ on Deadwing. We're talking about those 3 easy bases you can see over here. Namely, it's in reference to for DesRow, you know, as the Protoss player. Because if you take a look, there's obviously the natural expansion that you can take fairly easily, and there are some destructible rocks going down to a 4th. But normally you end up seeing those destructible rocks kind of get ignored, and you see this 3rd expansion being taken. And that's really easy because there's a nice little wall in that you can do. Of course, with just a couple of gateway units, you can even plant down a photon cannon if you're at all worried. But then even this 4th expansion, you move down to this ramp, you take this 4th expansion, and all you have to do is defend this area right in front of the 3rd expansion and the 4th expansion, and you're golden, especially in the vertical spawn positions. That's all you have to worry about.
Yeah, it's definitely a very interesting map here, and I'm excited to see how Jig especially will make use of it in the
Mm-hmm.
past. As you said, he's plays a bit of a different style, and
Yeah.
I haven't actually gone to see him a bit lately, so I'm excited to see him
Mm-hmm.
again here, especially in a Quebec tournament. And it looks like right now we may see a quick third, and it will be.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that is in fact a 3 hash before pool coming out from Jig. DesRow actually scouting with his probe, but not actually seeing the 3rd expansion. That's actually a little bit unfortunate, but I feel like when he gets into the main base, he's going to see, wait a second, where's your spawning pool? Why is your spawning pool just now starting? Oh, you're going 3 hatch before pool. I don't know if there's a lot that DesRow can really do about it right now, though. He's gone for the gateway expand.
Yeah, and you know what? Maybe he can try and take this, get in some gateway pressure possibly early on. He does have the 2 gases pretty quick here, so possibly might go into Twilight Council, maybe some Dark Shrine shenanigans. It's a possibility, and it could work out pretty well here, especially since, again, he is going 3 hatch before pool, not going to have a lot of defense, and that also, delays detection and anti-air.
Yeah, definitely. And it is kind of interesting. I'm curious to see if DesRow again will take that faster 3rd expansion just as a response to seeing, okay, you went 3 hatch before pool, I can go 3 Nexus really fast. And then there's always like the interesting mind game for the Zerg player. Like when they see the 3rd expansion come out really early, they say, well, do I want to take a fast 4th or do I want to just try and deny your 3rd expansion? And sometimes you see them take the fast 4th, and the Protoss player is also trying to play a little bit more economic heavy, and they say, well,
Yeah.
fine, then I'll just play really like tech heavy, and I'll get up some really fast Tempest or whatever, or just get up all my upgrades.
It very much becomes a game of monkey see, monkey do, or monkey see, monkey don't.
Yeah.
So it can go very back and forth, but right now it does look like Jig, even though he did go for the 3 edge before pool, he's not going to be too offset in terms of his build. It is a 4-player map, so it is a bit bigger than most other maps. So
Yeah.
he's going to have an easier time here.
Yeah, and really nice move actually from Jig. He just had these 2 Zerglings, moving them across the map, and it looked like DesRow wanted to put on a little bit of gateway pressure, but Jig actually just delays it a little bit longer. Not only does he get the scout off on it, but he actually pulls the Mothership Core back, as well as that Stalker. And just, usually when you see a Protoss player moving down to the Zelmaga Watchtower with a Zealot, Stalker, and Mothership Core, they want to actually maybe try and pick off a Queen or something, but that's a lot less likely now.
Right now, we've got 3 more gateways on the way, and Warp Gate going to be finishing up. Pylon going to be coming down. We're going to be seeing some 4-gate action coming out of DesRow here. And I guess after seeing that, oh, there's not too many units, he's probably going to be feeling very comfortable about going into this fight. We've got a couple Zerglings going to be scouting ahead here for Jig, and he will see that the Zealot Stalker Mothership Core force is here. I do believe he's also seen the Pylon. No, he hasn't. It's just out of his sight range. Oh, this could be really bad. He's got 10 Zerglings on the way, though, so it's not going to be as bad as it could be, but he's now found the Pylon, so he's going to be going into crunch time.
Alright, well, Jig really needs some of those units. 10 Zerglings going to be popping in a couple of seconds to assist the ones that are already there, but the drones are going to have to evacuate out of this 3rd expansion, and DesRow actually gets into a pretty decent position. He's right up against that hatcher. That makes it a lot harder for these Zerglings who don't have speed just yet. They're going to have it in 2 more seconds. There we go. But, oh man, is it a little bit too late, Dalk? They're now in the mineral line, and that means it's so hard for these Zerglings to get surface area on those Stalkers.
Right now, we've already had the Time War used up. The Mothership Core is a bit out of energy here. We've got Roaches now coming into the fight. You're going to be needing some more reinforcements. Mothership Core going to be pulled back pretty well here by DesRow, but he is going to be trying to pull back, but Jig's not going to let him. He's pushing right up into the Protoss units with his Roaches, and this is smart. He's going to be able to get everything, and he's going to effectively shut down that attack. And only 1 worker killed. He did lose a Queen, however, and quite a bit of mining time, so it wasn't too bad, but it could have gone a lot worse there for Jig. But with some immaculate micro, definitely went well.
Exactly, and I wanna completely agree with you right there, Solo, because honestly, DesRow lost a lot of really expensive stalkers and everything, stuff that he doesn't want to have to replace. He's going up to his robotic facility tech, he's going to get out Immortals and everything, but he's going to have to replace those stalkers and then Zealot much earlier on. And honestly, I feel like it was maybe a little bit of a misread of the situation by DesRow. DesRow is normally like a very good and strong player, but at that point in time, he threw down the Time Warp. When you throw down the Time Warp in that situation, you deny your ability to recall out. And I felt like that Time Warp was just this kind of confidence from DesRow, just saying, you know what, you don't have enough to defend this. I'm gonna take out your third expansion. I'm gonna do some real damage over here. And he didn't do the damage that he needed to, considering like the confidence that he was kind of exuding from that.
Yeah, and right now Jig, he's still on 3 bases here. He's had his lair finish up, and
Mm-hmm.
right now his economy is just booming. He's constantly staying around 1,000 minerals, and not because he's bad at this game and just having trouble using it. It's because he just has so much money coming in at the same time that he can't use it. Like,
Yeah.
so right now, DesRow, he's only getting up his third base now. He's going to be throwing down some more gateways, but he's very much playing catch up now that that 4 gate didn't work.
Yeah, exactly. Now, the nice thing is DesRow, like a good Protoss player, was actually taking out of it. I know some of you guys might be joking that, like a good Protoss player, you should just be all-inning all the time. But no, DesRow is actually transitioning out, and he was thinking about the transition, getting out the robotic facility during the midst of that attack, and that has allowed him to get out this one Immortal, and already has a second one on the way, Blink on the way, +1 weapons on the way. So there's a lot of things going to be finishing up for DesRow, but where's Jig at right now? It looks like he's actually not going for Carapace upgrades, and he's looking to try and intercept his army. He already has a decent number of Roaches and Hydralisks.
Now, he could actually have a bit more roaches. It would make it a bit easier as his Hydras, you know, they aren't the most beefy things in the world. And as you said, no Carapace upgrades, so it's going to be tough to engage so many gateway units without a lot of roach buffer. But he's going to pull back for now, just kind of sit in the middle. And he has his Hive on the way already, and this is really smart because, you know, he's got that Infestation Pit. If he gets another Evolution Chamber, he can start throwing upgrades out like a madman.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, he's just on such a roll with his tech here. And it's only 12 minutes and he's already getting a Hive. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some Vipers come out pretty soon once that Hive finishes up. Because Roach Hydra Viper versus a mainly robotics facility based army, it
Mm-hmm.
can be pretty scary.
Yeah, that's actually one really interesting point that you bring up, is that it's a robotic facility army, but there's no Colossus, actually. Which normally you want to use the Vipers to take out, pull in those Colossus and start taking them out. But DesRow doesn't actually have a robotics bay at all. He has a Twilight Council, he's getting up charge, he's getting up more upgrades, but if instead of having to use pull with those Vipers to take out Colossus, Jake is able to just use the Blinding Cloud on this army. I mean,
Yeah.
everything in this army would just get decimated by Blinding Clouds.
Definitely, especially since he's very much basing it with these sentries. He's trying to keep his army together. It's not very much an army that you can split apart and still have work.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree, Blinding Clouds would be very, very useful here, especially after the sentries have used all their force fields. But right now, DesRow, he's not going to be sitting. He's not the type of player who wants to only have the frontal attack. He wants to have 2 attacks going at the same time. He's got some Zealots into the main base. But DesRow and Jig, they've met each other multiple times, and Jig already knew that this was coming. He's got Spine Crawlers in his main base. The Vipers are now out, and the Roach Hydra army is going to be engaging the front.
Really nice position over here from DesRow. It's going to be very difficult for that Roach Hydra composition to actually get into a good position over here. Some great force fields go down, but there are the Blinding Clouds we were talking about, Salil. And he actually forces DesRow into a different situation. I mean, that was the golden positioning for DesRow, and now he has to back out of that area. There's no more Viper energy, though, and it looks like this is going to be a fairly close engagement. Oh, actually, no. DesRow's taking this pretty well.
Well, you know, those force fields, they were able to completely shut down a large part of the army there. The Roach buffer was completely on one side, the Hydralist DPS was on another, and it made it really difficult to actually get a good amount of damage in. But you know, Jig, he's a Zerg player. It doesn't matter if he loses half of his army. So long as he doesn't lose all of it, he's okay. He's completely changing up his army composition right now, getting these Zerglings, and it's going to be able to deal with the Sentries force fields a bit easier, as well as these Stalkers, as they're going to be distracted by the Zerglings. And also in the meanwhile, he's going to be getting an Ultralisk Cavern, which will just completely toss things up once they come out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm pretty interested to see how this is gonna go for DesRow now that there's so many, more units put out there for Jig right now. And we're gonna see a couple of those expensive units for DesRow getting taken out. The Immortal is still actually alive, amazingly enough, but it looks like it is going to be taken out as well. Jig now pushing in. He wants to try and take out this third expansion.
Nice feedbacks coming out from the High Templars, and right now the Vipers, they're gonna have to pull back. Though these Hydralisks, they're just gonna try and intercept their way up that ramp. So far, dealing a pretty good amount of damage, and this is actually looking really scary for DesRow. His supply is falling. Hashtag dance coming out from Jig. He's not quite able to type the slash, but
he's gonna do both. I think this might be a little bit preemptive right now. Master Dolph right now. Jig is doing a great job, but I don't think the double dance was actually necessary. He's gonna get cleaned up. That was a little bit overeager.
You know, these two, they are, I guess you could call them friends.
Again?
He did, in fact, about 3 times in that fight. These two, they do know each other quite a bit, so I'm not surprised that they are trying to have some fun while also being very serious here. And also, surprisingly, the Warp Prism is still alive in the main base of Jig, actually. It's just kind of floating there. Probably, using that, making some more Zealots to try and deal some harassment would be good, especially since we're now reaching the Ultralisk phase here. We're going to be getting Infestors, and only the Zerglings in this army are very mobile. So DesRow really, it's good that he has this Warp Prism because he's really going to have to use it well.
Yeah, and the more that I see DesRow style, it really does remind me more of this kind of Wings of Liberty old school style where I think it was Genius. Oh god, I'm trying to remember what Protoss it was, but he just refused to make Colossus, and that's kind of what DesRow is doing. And this actually unit composition can be super strong against the Ultralisk because you get out a lot of Immortals from their Vitality. You never have to make Colossus, and you get out a lot of Archons. You get out High Templars for Storm and everything else, and you can also feed back those Vipers. And look at this.
Yeah.
He's actually doing okay-ish, I think.
It was okay at first because the buffer was there, but now he's lost already 3 Ultralisks in that one engagement, and that is just terrible. Blink forward, gonna be losing 2 more. He really needs to be careful not to engage without the Zerglings and without the Infestors, because it's just so hard to keep a Protoss army, especially with Blink in place, if he doesn't have the Fungal Growths available.
Yeah, nice pulls going on, picking out some of those Archons where he can, but man, I would love to see DesRow just utilize this Warp Prism, warp in a handful of those Zealots, and you could wreak havoc inside that main base. Even with the Spine Crawlers there, actually, you know what? I would actually love to see a Dark Shrine, because you have a Protoss player who's sitting on 4 bases. You have the money to actually, warp in 1 or 2 of those Dark Templars, and you could seriously do a lot of damage at this point.
He could, but right now I guess he doesn't want to be taking too many risks, especially since right now I wouldn't be surprised if he tried, putting in some more pokes here, especially since, again, if you have an Ultralisk player just sitting on their forces, building it up, it can be very scary later on in the game. It's not so much the first hit with the Ultralisk slings and Infestors, it's the tech switch that will be the scary thing. Is right now Jig, he's got his Spire on the way, and oh my god, he has a lot of upgrades. I think he's even getting Neural Parasite, and I'm really hoping he actually uses it.
I agree with you, Master Dolph. Right now, he is getting a lot of upgrades, but he's also kind of behind on upgrades. Like, it's cool that he's getting them. He's gotten up to Chitinous Plating, I think, for these Ultralisks, but that's kind of it. He's up against +3 Archons and Immortals. Yeah. There's actually a decent number of them. And these Ultralisks are supposed to have +5 weapons. The Zerglings are sitting on just +1 Carapace upgrades and +1 missile attacks, or melee attacks.
Well, we've got the army going to be coming in. Neural Parasites on the Archons. This is an amazing choice. Going to be able to completely decimate the Stalkers. Even an Immortal getting Neural Parasite and Fungal Growths even went down. More Ultralisks going to be coming in, but it's just not enough. Not enough for the army. And right now we've got 58 Zerglings, 5 Ultralisks on the way here for Jig. He's really going to try remaxing. Not quite going to the Spire units, but I'm not sure if this is the correct choice here for Jig. He did invest a lot of resources into this army, but we've already got the double Stargate and that Dark Shrine you were talking about, Dear Dragon. And with the double Stargate, it's gonna be really easy to deal with Mulisks.
Yeah, it's gonna be easier, but you still do have to kind of preemptively start making some of those Phoenix. Because if you have a Zerg player, hold that thought, we actually have the Ultras now charging in. They're on a regular move command. Oh no, he was going straight for the middle line. But he's lost so much of his army. This you can't replace this army more than once or twice.
It's really difficult, and now we've got Corruptors on the way, it seems. Preemptively trying to guess that Phoenixes would be coming out, so really just trying to mind game his opponent. But I think he might have actually used these mind games a bit too much, as he's, you know, taken a lot of losses coming into here. Actually, not Corruptors for the Phoenixes, it's Corruptors for the Broodlords, but Jig, you know, biggest throw, even gonna be laughing. GG, well played, comes out from Jig.
And DesRow going to be taking game number 1 in this best of 3 series for the winners bracket finals. But Dalek, Jig knows it, you know it, I know it, DesRow knows it. That was a throw. Okay, like sometimes you might hear like casters kind of shy away from that, but Jig was in a winning position there. He was moving up to the 3rd expansion. He had the capabilities to take it out. And he decided to get a little bit too over gear. Not dancing one, not dancing twice. I think he danced like 7 times, okay? He was dancing his units until they all died, okay?
Yeah,
so,
that
Jig,
was...
I can appreciate, like, you're being friendly because you know your opponent and everything. You know, these guys are, like, whatever, in Canada, French Canadians, at a local LAN tournament.
Yeah.
But still, I think it was just a little bit too much. Jig has got to really kind of bear down and suck up sort of maybe a little bit of the embarrassment from that last game. And you know what? He played really well in the beginning. He can get into that stage again. But he's going to have to be a little bit more careful about it.
Yeah, and that was just really... I don't know what to say. Jig had it for so long, and then it just went all down the drain. But, you know, enough of game 1. This is also a double elimination tournament, so if he does lose the best of 3, it's not the end of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, he has done this before. He's lost in winners finals of a Skyzo Cup, went to the losers bracket, and then just completely won it in the grand finals. So we'll see if he's able to pull it back here. Gonna be going into Overgrowth here for game number 2.
Yeah, Overgrowth is actually a pretty fun map because there's 2 things that I think about when I think about PvZ on Overgrowth. One of them is Immortal Sentry all-ins. The other is Swarmos.
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether we're going to be seeing either of those, but let's go ahead and jump into the game and find out as we introduce the players. Spawning up here in the top right-hand corner, using the WCS EU overlay right now. I'm just going to go ahead and change that right now because I'm going to forget otherwise.
I don't think you're able to change UIs from in-game.
You can't change it in-game, but it'll affect it for the next game.
Okay.
Anyways, spawning up here in the top right-hand corner, representing Team Gravity, and currently down 0-1, but still has the potential to come back. It is Jig.
And over on the bottom left of Overgrowth, we've got our orange Protoss, the Panda Toss. He is up 1-0, representing Asus, Chairs for Gaming, and Corsair. It is DesRow.
You should really use the Panda decal, man. He's called the Panda Toss.
Yeah.
You know what the Panda decal I'm talking about is, right?
Yeah. But to each their own, I guess. But right now, DesRow, he's got to probe across the map pretty quickly here.
Yeah. Okay, so this is a pylon scout from DesRow.
Yeah.
Now, this could be like just a bit more of an old school style where you go for the forge first and you send out your early probe and try and just stop your opponent from being able to get out a hatchery first.
Mm-hmm.
But this could also be something maybe a little more tricky. He might also be thinking about going for some kind of crazy like forge forge cannon shenanigans, but actually it's looking more like it's going to be the first. He's just trying to deny that hatchery, I think, and he's going to be going for the Nexus first.
Yeah, it seems so. As you know, I was gonna say there was a possibility for cannons to come out, as back in Skyzo Cup 9, back in January, I believe it was.
Mm-hmm.
On Yeonsu, DesRow did cannon rush Jig. It was quite an entertaining game. So I was hoping maybe we can get that again, but no, it is just gonna be the Nexus first, as you said, with the Forge Fast expand coming out here.
Yep, Forge is now going up. DesRow not taking too many chances. I know some Protoss players. It is so easy as a Protoss player to just see your opponent and be like, you know, I could have a Nexus, but what if I just started my gateway first? You know, or sometimes you'll get up the forge and you'll be like, what if I just didn't build my cannon just yet? What if I put it off a little bit longer? And that's something you gotta be careful about against a player like Jig. I think DesRow knows it. Jig is not afraid to do weird things like make a handful of Zerglings a little bit early, just a little bit earlier on than you normally see them, and suddenly you could have Zerglings in your mid base. So I like the kind of semi-caution that DesRow is playing with.
Yeah, right now we've got the probe getting pulled back here. We've got the Nexus going to be finishing up, but again, Jig with the 3 bases pretty quickly out. I don't know, it's looking to be kind of similar to last game now. Of course, Jig, he is playing also a bit more cautiously since he is not going for the 3 edge before pool. This is a much smaller map compared to Deadwing, so definitely a much safer option is probably going to be the better one. We do actually have more than one probe just roaming around the map, and I do like this from DesRow because it allows him to keep a constant check on his opponent, allows him to make sure he knows what's going on.
He's actually going to get into the main base. Not going to see the gas geysers, which I think is probably what he wanted to see. Just because there's some funky all-ins and stuff that you can actually do where you get up your 3rd expansion but you don't actually mine from it. All kinds of roach all-ins. Actually, I think I saw a couple of those earlier today in the Lima League, but nothing of the sort actually going to be happening. Jig just kind of droning up, hasn't grabbed any of his gas geysers. Now, let's talk a little bit about gas timings for the Protoss player DesRow, because depending on when he decides to grab these 3rd and 4th gas geysers, that can really be a big indicator of what kind of build he wants to go for. And actually, he's going to be going for the Stargate rather than grabbing any of those extra gas geysers. So I feel like we're probably going to be seeing him add on a couple more gateways alongside this Stargate. I don't know. What do you think?
I'm thinking we will probably be getting either 5 to 6 Phoenix or an Oracle or 2 coming out of the Stargate here. So yeah, definitely a couple gateways being added on wouldn't be too surprising. Stargate versus Zerg, it's not quite the best composition if they aren't also going for the air units as well. Especially Hydralisk, they can just wreck Phoenix so hard. But, you know, it was a little surprising here that the Stargate was actually a bit delayed because, unfortunately, DesRow, he only had 2 probes going on the bottom gas of his main because one was just sitting idly next to the assimilator.
Oh.
So it could have actually been a lot faster. We've got the Overlord coming in here, Phoenix queued up, but time, you know, little things like this, they can make all the difference.
Indeed they can. Jig already starting those Spore Crawlers and should be in a decent position to not take too much damage from the Phoenixes. Second Phoenix is actually getting Chrono Boosted out, so DesRow definitely wants to do a little bit of good damage to Jig. There are a couple Overlords that you could try and pick off. I think there's probably like, what, 3 or 4 Overlords that he can pick off if he is quick about it. So it's not too bad to take some of that free damage.
Yeah, you know, Jig, though, he is a little bit supply blocking. Of course, cutting into larvae is never fun. And, though, it's not going to stop Jig completely. Yeah. Phoenixes can be tough to deal with, especially if you, like, had an Overlord that was the one scouting the Phoenix. But
yeah,
he's got them all rallied over towards that Spore Crawler now. Should be okay.
Yep, the 3 Phoenix are now out, and we do actually have another Stargate being added on over here for DesRow, as well as a couple of extra gateways. The double Stargate is really interesting. Normally, if you see a Protoss player going for like double Stargate off of just 2 bases, well, I guess now 3rd expansion being taken, but it can oftentimes lead into a lot of Void Ray production, actually.
Yeah, it could, but normally you'd see players going up to about 3 Stargates for getting up with the Void Rays. I'm feeling he's trying to stick with the Phoenix here. He's probably thinking that there's going to be Mulisks, as he's basically only seen Zerglings come out so far. Sure, there was the Roachhorn, but there wasn't anything being effectively happening from it. So he was probably guessing it was just going to be Mulisks after seeing, like, oh, you have Zerglings for such a long while, but no, it's actually just going to be a really delayed Roach Hydra composition.
Yeah, now with all the Zerglings actually running across the map, this could be a little bit annoying for DesRow to deal with. Now, he does have +1 weapon Zealots, which actually should be able to tear through these Zerglings, but that may be a few too many Zerglings? I don't know.
It might be. If he can get in a good position, he should be able to deal with them. Having attack commands like that, it will allow DesRow to just have it a bit easier, but these Zerglings, they're really fast for these Zealots. So right now, having only 4 Zealots without charge is going to make it really difficult for all of these Zerglings to actually die. And we do see 2 of them going to get surrounded. A lot of Zerglings will go down for an overcharge on the third, and the Zerglings will get sent packing. But the Phoenix are still alive, and they're still keeping Jig in his base, and they're preventing map control. And I think this is why we had that large number of Zerglings come out, because he hasn't seen anything for such a long time. He just needed to be able to scout, be able to keep some map control on his side after losing all of it to the Phoenix.
Yeah, the Phoenix, like the continuous Phoenix production, is a really interesting choice over here from DesRow. Because now he's going to be up against a decent number of Hydralisks, and his Phoenix count is there. It's actually still pretty good, but I mean, he has 11 Phoenix, but he's pulling them inside his main base. What exactly is he planning to do? It's just charge, well, no charge actually for these Zealots just yet, but it's just going to be Zealots and Phoenix. That's all that DesRow really has right now.
It's an interesting composition indeed, but you know, he does have anti-air, and he also has anti-ground, so it's not the worst thing in the world, but it could definitely be a lot better. Right now, we don't have too many Hydralisks, so the Phoenix could actually just pick up the Hydras to deal with them. Zergling's going to be on hold position, but these are a lot of Zealots, but now we've got a lot of Hydralisks coming in. Phoenix all going to be picking up so many Hydras, and they're going to have to run back. Zergling's going to get cleaned up. And this is what I was saying. He has both things covered. It's an interesting composition, but it's not a terrible one.
Yeah, and the thing about this composition that's making it work against the unit composition that Jig has is, you know, the Zerglings are supposed to sort of tank and add a bit of a buffer for the Hydralisk, right? But the Phoenix, they basically just chase down the Hydralisk. The Zealots rip through the Zerglings, and as soon as those Zerglings are gone, which is actually pretty fast when you have as many Zealots as DesRow does, guess what? The Hydrals can't really kite back, or they can't really just sit there and deal DPS to the Phoenix. They have to kite back against those Zealots.
Yeah, and right now we've got the Zealots and Phoenix right into the natural here. Not a lot of units out from Jig. The Roach is getting picked up by the Phoenix. The Zealots are just going to be trying to kill whatever's on the ground that the Phoenix haven't picked up yet. And right now it looks like the Spore Callers are putting in a bit of damage, but it's not so much damage that he can't micro away from it.
Indeed. Well, God, these Phoenix, oh my God, they're going to supply block Jig. They're going to be able to kill off a couple more of his Overlords. And he doesn't even need to reinforce with many Zealots right now. He's doing fine amount of damage just like this.
lasers, that's all that's happening. And if I could quote Mike from the Punch Crew earlier, but you know, right now we've just got a lot of Phoenix and they're still alive. We've got a mainly anti-ground force here, mainly Roaches here, but you know, the thing with the Phoenix is that they're only allowed to pick up units based off of their energy. So eventually the energy will run out. So DesRow's really going to have to bank on that because he's used up quite a bit already.
Wow, some clutch Whirlwinds acting as force fields for DesRow, stopping those Roaches from getting right on top of all those sentries. That actually could have been a terrible situation. But actually, DesRow doesn't have an Observer. He does have a Robotics Facility. He's getting that Observer out, so these Roaches will eventually get taken out by some of these Phoenix, but a little bit an awkward situation initially.
And right now the Roaches are going to unburrow the Phoenixes. They're right on top of them waiting for them. And, you know, with the Observer here as well, it's not going to be too big of a deal anymore. We've even got Void Ray is going to be coming in the background from this. So DesRow, he's got his lead with these Phoenix, and he was able to keep it. And now he's going to be transitioning out. We do have a lot of Hydralisks coming out from Jig, and the Hydras can deal with Void Rays pretty easily because of the fact that the Prismatic Alignment doesn't actually affect versus Hydralisk, but the Phoenix and the Zealots and the Sentries, they're still there to deal with the Hydra specifically, whereas the Void Rays, they can deal with Vipers, Corruptors, and Roaches extremely easily.
Yeah, this is going to be getting to be a very scary situation right now for Jig, because he continues to produce more and more of these Hydralisks, but now, I mean, you saw what happened the last time there was that big engagement of just pure Zealots and the Phoenix. Now you add in a couple of Immortals to deal with some of the Roaches. You add in a couple of Force Fields to trap Roaches and Hydralisks. And then you also add in the fact that these Zealots now have charge. And Jig he's not going to have the direct unit composition to deal with this. He's going to have to try and out-macro DesRow, I feel. But he's actually losing a lot of Overlords. He's going to get supply blocked once again. This is going to hurt his reproduction capability.
And right now, you know, DesRow, he's just constantly able to get in, deal damage, but we've got a lot of Hydralisks. Only taking out 2 Phoenix, unfortunately, because these aren't Vikings. They do not have the hit scan function. and they will all target down the same Phoenix at the same time. But Jig, I agree. He's just basically gonna have to make a lot more units than his opponent here to try and deal with it. And I feel he's done that. He's got 122 army supply here to 99 of DesRow. Though of course there are a lot of damage dealing units here. And Roach Hydra, it's a pretty finicky composition to go up against.
Oh, well, the Roach's Hydros are now moving toward that 4th expansion. I like that Jig is only using a couple of units to try and deal some damage there. He doesn't want to get caught with his pants down and all of his army over there. Some Force Seals going down. The Charge Loss now moving in. The Phoenix coming in to back up and try and pick up as many of these Hydros as possible, but Jig has a pretty scary army. Those 2-2 upgrades definitely paying off against the 1-1 of DesRow.
Yep, and right now it looks like the Roach and Hydra, they're going to be able to completely tear through this 4th base now, and that was a good bit of damage. It allowed Jig to not only prevent DesRow from keeping his lead, it also allowed him to have the possibility of getting his own here. But he is going to lose this entire Roach Hydra force. They're just really slow off creep. The Phoenix, they're not scared anymore. We've got the main army coming in. It's going to get cleaned up. But behind this Jig, he's going to be trying to reproduce these units. He's got a 5th base on the way. He's had his 4th for a while now. And I do like from Jig that he is making static defense in a lot of places. Again, Jig and DesRow, they met many, many times before. They know each other's playstyles fairly well, I'd like to say. So seeing that there's a lot of static defense coming out at the most outside bases, it doesn't surprise me from Jig because he knows DesRow likes having harassment constantly coming his way.
Yeah, DesRow overextending maybe just a little bit. Gonna have to back up, especially with some of those Phoenix. Storm is actually finished up, though, and that is actually gonna change the tide of the battle. Some nice storms go down on top of a lot of those Hydros. Jake has got to be careful where he steps now, because now that this is the thing that DesRow honestly did not have last game, and it's something that he really, really, I felt, needed for a lot of it. It was that extra splash damage from the Cyanic Storms, or, from Colossus, and that honestly could just change the way that this game ends up going.
Oh, right now, it looks like DesRow, he's going to be moving forward a bit, and only half the army there for Jig was able to engage the High Templar. They're fishing for a nice storm here. Oh, going to be able to get, actually, not so great storms there, using a lot of energy on a few units, but that's more in favor of Jig. He's going to be able to get rid of the destructible debris. It will allow him to have an easier engagement. Going to be able to just completely get around the army, but unfortunately has only half of his army yet again, and his army in general isn't that big. They're about even army supplies here. Lots of AoE damage coming in, storms coming in across, but you know what? With the Archons adding in so much damage, the Immortals adding in so much DPS, wasn't enough, but we've got some Zealots going to be coming in towards the 3rd. The Queen very close to dying. Drone's actually playing a shield, but that one range of the Psy Blade is going to be able to finish it off. It will get cleaned up, but Jig is going to lose the main fight. He's going to lose the Queen in this 3rd, and DesRow, he's looking pretty good here.
DesRow's looking for that 5th expansion. He's pulled all those reinforcing Hydralisks that Jig wanted to probably use, move over to his 5th expansion, and now they're out of position. They were over to the 3rd, and he's going to end up losing this 5th expansion very, very quickly. That's kind of what happens when you're up against a 5 immortal army with a handful of those Voiders mixed in the mix. But hold that thought. Hydral's now trying to move in, but God, DesRow has just been zoning out so well with these storms. Jig has been macroing up with these armies time and time again, but he just hasn't been taking the most efficient trades.
Right now, we've even got 3 Dark Templar that headed in towards the natural, and Jig, he's not even has the time to focus on them. He has to also make sure that DesRow's not going to be able to get a good position and completely destroy whatever base he wants to make right now. DTs, they're going to be focusing down the Hydra Den. Spore Crawlers will be able to provide detection, and Transfuses will go down. We'll have to see, will it actually be able to go down? Most likely not. Half health, though, taken away from it. 5th base going to get shut down again. And DesRow right now, he has +3 attack. He's got +1 weapons. He's going to be getting +1 shields, and this is going to help with the Immortals and his Archons so much. Whereas right now, Jig is only now getting +3 Carapace, but he's just so spread out. The static defense isn't enough anymore.
I think that I agree with you. He is very, very spread out. And one thing I would love to have seen more out of Jig is just trying to restart that creep spread to get going again and again, because he keeps getting pulled out of position time and time again by this army. Just a couple of Zealots move over to one location. His army feels like, okay, do I stay over here? Okay, let me send a handful of units to my main base, and I'll keep the rest of my army at the 3rd. And then the entire army of DesRow moves in and cancels the 5th expansion. So stuff like that just keeps catching him off guard. He doesn't have the information he needs to position his army properly. And it's hurting him right now. It's hard though, because I know that it's going to be difficult to get up that creep spread against DesRow, who's constantly being on the other side of the map in potentially areas where you could just shut down the creep spread.
Yeah, and right now, DesRow, he has this nice lead, and he's gotten it from constantly being on his opponent's side of the map. But right now, Jig, he's going to be trying to put on some harassment of his own, but the fight keeps almost happening, and then it doesn't happen, and then storms come out, and then it doesn't happen again, and it's just so back and
DesRow has
forth.
to be careful. DesRow has to be careful here. There's no Mothership Core here. He can't escape. The High Templars are actually by themselves right now. 2 of them try and lay down some storms. The last storm does end up going down as the Archons are finally there, but there's not that many units over here for DesRow.
The entire army was so out of position. The High Templar is not able to get any storms on the Hydralisks. All of them used on the Roaches and even some of his own Zealots. Now it's just the damage dealing units. He's going to lose all of it. And that is so much supply down the drain for both players, actually. But the thing is, Jig, he has the ability to reinforce so much quicker. He's been banking so much larvae because he's not had to make too many units because no fights were happening yet. And now DesRow, he's in this peculiar position where he had this amazing lead, but now Jig, he's had some harassment come into DesRow's 4th base. Jig also is on 5 bases so far, and so many units are going to get pumped out so fast for our Zerg player.
Oh, this is really rough. The nice lead and position that DesRow had created for himself was because he had so many of those expensive units. He had a large number of those Immortals just built up over time. He had a good number of those Zealots. He had a couple of Phoenix still in the mix. He had a large High Templar count, and that's all been reset. He still has a couple of High Templar actually that he's kept alive just back at home. They have a lot of energy for Storm, and now he's actually started the Colossus production, which is going to be nice, but it's not the army that he had before. He's going to have to really make sure that these engagements are very cost effective, and he's doing a great job of it right now with the Storms.
He's going to be losing pretty much all of those High Templars, but a lot of damage dealt and a lot of units killed. And right now, we've even got some more Storms coming down at the 4th base, but there's still one Roach alive, gets in range of the cannons, will go down, but Jig, again, he's not done yet. He's just going to be producing lots and lots of units right now. He's had a lot of gas banked up Fear Dragon, and you know what we've got coming on the way? We've got a Spire coming on the way. I wouldn't be surprised if we got the next tech switch into the air units.
Generally, I talk about Protoss player hating Mutalisks, especially that tech switch. That is one of the most dreaded things about this matchup. But actually, if DesRow can keep these Archons alive, maybe he'll be okay. I don't know. It's going to come down to how this engagement goes. The Colossus ripping apart the Roaches, as well as those Storms actually doing pretty well. But only the Colossus are left over. Where is the tank? Where's the buffer for these units?
They all died. That early fungal was just so crucial into this engagement. So much damage dealt, and also just holding his entire buffer in one place. Roaches sweeping in, killing it off. And now, he's got 5 Colossus. And he's got a couple of Dark Templars, but that's kind of it. We've got 20 Roaches on the way, and they can deal with 5 Colossus, or 4 Colossi, excuse me, pretty easily if these storms don't hit very well.
That's very interesting right now. Jig has the ability to make Mutalisks, but he just doesn't have the minerals to make. He's just making more and more Roaches right now, trying to defend this 5th expansion. Archons are now coming in, infested Terrans being lobbed out, but those are getting cleaned up very, very quickly against 4 Colossus. It looks like DesRow should be able to shut down this 5th expansion, and he might even be able to kill off some of those drones if he goes ahead and notices them.
And, he's lost his 6th base now, but he's going to have some Roaches that go, whoa, they got really close to those High Templars. DesRow not quite paying attention there. Going to be losing a couple of Templars. Will be able to get into the Minerline Forces and Archon more. But, the entire army is pulled back. These Roaches will most likely get cleaned up soon. But it will allow Jig to buy himself some more time.
Exactly. Right
now, he actually has 3k minerals and 3k gas. I'm surprised he hasn't made Mutalisks yet.
Look at this
or
split.
Anything yet.
Look at this split of burrowed Roaches from Jig. This is actually the most annoying thing in the world, because guess what? He's not going to be able to pick up all of them, but look at this. DesRow with the Dark Templars once again taking out this gold expansion. And that is actually putting Jig into a very awkward position. Because he's lost his army so many times now, and he finally doesn't have the economy to reproduce it. He doesn't have any minerals at his third expansion. His fourth expansion is the only thing mining anymore.
Yeah, we've got the Mulisks coming out. There are going to be quite a few, but there are a lot of Archons, and they can deal a lot of damage pretty easily as well. It's going to be hard without any buffer. He's just got only the Mulisk. It's very easy to just target down one unit type if that's all there is. And right now, DesRow, he's moving forward. Jig under 100 supply. I'm not sure if Jig can come back yet.
Oh my god, the Mules are trying to get on top of the Colossus with some nice storms. We'll soften them up at the same time, though. DesRow has taken out the economy of Jig. Jig is down to 4 drones right now, and I think that he's basically forced into a base trade at this point. He cannot try and engage his army head on. Maybe he can try and get a couple of nice pickoffs if these units get a little bit too over-aggressive, but I don't know if Jig can do this, because honestly, DesRow's already doing a great job just splitting up his ground units, sending them after any of the production facilities for Jig. Jig can't reproduce anything. Just send your Archons back home and defend. That's all you need to do, DesRow.
Yeah, and even so, he's even got a High Templar at this base where the Mulisks are at on the bottom right of the map. Storms are going to be able to go down, and so many Mulisks dead. Nothing's being produced anymore by either player, but you know what? It's... Oh, the Mulisk count is just falling, and Jig, under 40 supply, gonna have to tap out. But a very valiant effort coming out from Jig. But alas, you know, even if you put in a good effort, it's still the 2-0 that counts.
Yeah, and you know, DesRow played that out very well. I do not want to take that away from him. Jig definitely played it out very well in that second game, but I keep thinking back to that first game, Master Dolk. That first game, imagine if Jig had another chance. That was not by any means this kind of complete walkover by DesRow thing. That was a pretty back and forth game. There were a lot of different points where we were saying, you know, I think that Jig is looking to be in a better position right now, and then DesRow was looking to be in a better position. And yeah. I feel like if Jig had that third game, wait, I'm actually getting invited by Jig to another game. I thought it was the best of 3.
It was the best of 3 losers finals, yes. For those of you who are unaware, this is a double elimination tournament, so Jig now plays Spynol. So we're going to be getting losers finals soon. I do believe we're going to be having a bit of a break, possibly.
Yeah, we do want to actually give a shout out to the sponsors, MSI, for making this stuff possible. So we're not going to waste any time. We're really quickly going to jump into that video. So we'll be back in 2 minutes, guys. Don't go anywhere. Alright guys, game number 1 is on the way, and it's over.
Yeah, they started up, but unfortunately we had to restart that because not quite ready yet, but
oh man,
you know, things happen.
Oh god, that's actually really funny because we were like talking with the players and everything. I think they want to get the next game underway almost immediately, which is actually really awesome to see. Sometimes players, they wait a little bit too long between games. They're like, okay, I need to go to the bathroom at a Denny's a mile and a half away. By the way, I don't have a car. It's going to take about 30 minutes. I'm like, you don't have a bathroom in your place? Like, come on. But, you know, these guys, they're super on top of it. So, big shout-outs to them. And
but
I want to give a shout-out to everyone in the chat who I see you're communicating with in French.
Yeah, unfortunately, we cannot run a French stream, at least myself and Fear Dragon,
Mhm.
as mon français est mauvais, et Fear Dragon ne sait pas français.
Yo hablo
Uh,
español.
this is Canada, not US. We speak French here, sir. Uh, but anyway, speaking of French, we're actually going to be getting in, and just to screw with you, Ravi, we're going to be starting on our yellow Protoss player, because he kind of went in with my segue. He is from the French team Armada Gaming, for yellow Protoss, is Spynol.
And his opponent spawning down in the bottom left-hand corner of the map as the blue Zerg player representing Team Gravity. It is Gravity's Jig.
We got another PVZ here, and I'm a bit happy with this. I'm from Toronto. Here in Toronto, we just get a lot of ZVZs, but luckily, unlike Toronto, Quebec in general just has more than one Terran and more than one Protoss, so we actually get more than one matchup for most of the tournament. It's exciting.
Yeah, you know what else is exciting? An early pool coming out of Jig. And I want to say that was, what, a 9 pool? Or a 10 pool? One of the two.
I want to say 9 pool. And Nimbus, albeit being a 4-player map, is actually fairly small in size. It's very easy to get across the map. So I'm
Hmm.
not surprised that we might see some,
You think so?
shenanigans coming out.
I don't know. I feel like it's still a pretty big map. Like Jake has to send out this early drone. He's gonna know where his opponent is around the time that this overlord actually moves into the main base and sees, oh, there's nothing there. The drone will also see the bottom right hand corner, but that's still a long trek along the cross spawn position. I think the main reason why this might work out is because Spindle's not gonna actually scout out Jake for quite a bit of time.
He's
Let's go for
going
Nexus
Nexus
first.
first. Oh, Spino,
It's
this is...
it's not over yet. The Forge is going to go down. Spinel's not going to play it out too greedy by going for the Gateway Expand immediately afterwards. And he has a nice area where he can kind of be a little bit walled in if he realizes what's going on. If he keeps that probe over there, he can still plant down a pylon, buy a little bit of time, and try and get up a photon cannon. But it's going to be really hard. He's going to have to pull probes.
Oh, this is gonna be tough to deal with. He does have a pretty good SimCity at the front of his base. He is also gonna be throwing down that gateway, but there is still that hole, and I don't think he knows this is quite coming. He's got nothing there in the 6
Oh,
Zerglings. They're gonna get right in. They're gonna start attacking that pylon, and we've got some probes getting pulled here. And going Nexus first against this is not the easiest thing to do. Spinol now gonna be supply blocked. If he does lose a probe or two, which is most likely gonna happen, it's gonna fix that problem. But we've got a cannon on the way. So he's gonna have trouble getting in some more reinforcements, but for right now, there's quite a few Zerglings already inside.
yes, luckily for Spinel, he doesn't really know it, but in fact, Jig is not actually producing any more Zerglings to send across the map. But he does get a cancel off on that Photon Cannon. The other pylon that's actually created the full wall and is actually getting focus fire down by those two Zerglings on the outside. So that's going to be yet another annoyance because every single time Spinel loses that, he's going to have to try and reproduce it because he doesn't know whether or not there are more Zerglings coming.
Yeah, and he's lost quite a few workers in this
Uh,
so far. He's gonna have to slow down his expansion. The cannon's just now finishing, but it's already taking quite a bit of damage. We've got so much mining time lost as well, and
yeah.
we've still got 4 Zerglings in here. Should be able to get one more down, and will do that. And I wouldn't be surprised if he just kind of waited, healed up the Zerglings a bit, and then continued to go in for some more probes.
Well, I mean, yeah, there's not even actually a cybernetics core finished up, so there's not going to be a mothership core. It's pretty much just an eventual zealot that you imagine will be coming. And Spinel can be as annoying as he wants. I don't think he even has to really wait that long for the Zerglings to regenerate health. They just sit at the natural expansion, but there's not that many probes to even pull.
Yeah, it's 3 Zerglings to 3 probes in
Oh.
that natural, but right now, Jig, he's done quite
We're,
a bit of damage. Just taking a look at resources lost, 400 more resources lost by our Protoss player here. But Jig, in the meanwhile, he is going to be taking up behind this. He's got his expansion finished up. And yeah, double gas.
ooh, well, actually, the probe comes in and scouts us. The double gas guys are honestly felt a little bit to me like he was going to go for some kind of big roach attack, which I don't think would go terribly. Oh, losing the Zerglings, a little bit unfortunate for Jig, but still he did pretty damn good amount of damage with those Zerglings. And I don't know. Okay, we have a fast lair coming out, and third and fourth guys coming out. Are we going to be seeing fast Mutalisks?
It could be, you
Hmm.
know, without the roaches, it's most likely not going to be Roach Hydra, and I wouldn't be surprised. Again, the Cybernetics core is coming down at 7 minutes, and it's still not
Yeah.
done, and there's just no defense. I wouldn't be surprised if we just got say 10 Mutalisks and went into that natural, tried dealing a lot of damage, as a lot of Spinol's money is going into trying getting up some probes and trying to get up his early game tech that would normally have already been done.
Hmm. Yeah, this is actually going to be a really awkward situation for Spinal because, as you were saying, you cut out. You don't even need an absurd number of beetles. You just need like 8, maybe, and you're gonna already just with that count kill off a couple of workers just because there's the cybernetics core is so late. That means that I was gonna say there's not gonna be a whole lot of anti-muting in this, but Stargate opening
Oh.
coming out from Spinal. I think this may. I don't know if this is just a really good read on the situation because I think he saw the extra gas. He saw the 2 gas guys, or at least saw 1 actually. But he saw the drones mining from the lower one. So
Yeah.
he may have just said like, okay, well, maybe it's either going to be a roach attack or a Mutilus play, and he kind of has to make a choice. Which one does he think it's going to be? He went with Mutilus, and he's getting +1 air weapons. I think that Spino is completely onto this, just as a good read.
Possibly, and you know, he did also see there was no tier 2 tech coming out. There was no Roach Warren. He hadn't, so there wasn't also very many Zerglings. Wouldn't be surprised if he just was thinking it might be Mutalisk, or I was gonna say he might just try and cut his losses and go for some very aggressive Stargate units. He's gonna be getting an Oracle here, unfortunately, and
Mm-hmm.
I was also gonna say, like, even if it was just a good read, only one Stargate isn't enough for early
Uh,
game Mutalisks, because there are quite a few that come out. The Stargates would have been finishing at about the same time as the Spires, so you just need a lot of Phoenixes right off the bat to try and deal with them effectively.
I don't know, maybe. Because I imagine, like, okay, imagine the Phoenix comes out immediately afterwards. Let's say it gets, this at least a second one or so gets coded with symbol. Actually, it's all a moot point because we have 2 more Stargates coming out from Spinal. He is going into massive, massive number of Stargates coming out soon. And this is
Yeah.
not, there's no hallucinated Phoenix that have been coming out. He obviously didn't have the sentries or the energy to do it. It's
Yeah.
actually just a really good read on the situation. He's kind of taking a little bit of risk. And look, Oracle sees the Mutilus. He might lose his life, but that's definitely worth it. He knows he needs to start boosting out those Phoenix ASAP.
Oh, if he could Revelation those Mutalisks, that would be so good for him right now, but it's
I
gonna
don't
be
know
kind
if
of tough.
I yeah, I think if
He
he
had the
tried to turn
energy, but
around, it takes like a second to cast it, and I think he actually would have lost the Oracle in that time. I'm not entirely sure.
it takes about it takes a third of a second actually to cast it if you're already moving and they're in range already. It doesn't take that long to cast it, so I guess maybe just a bit of a miscalculation. But we do have the
Oh,
3 Phoenix coming out here again, which is very good. Having that Oracle, did scout the Mulists ahead of time, but unfortunately, 3 Phoenix isn't quite enough to deal with this
well,
quite yet. He is going to boost a few more out and should be able to deal with them fairly shortly.
I actually feel like Spinel is in a better situation than you'd anticipate, and Jig might not even realize this, but those Phoenixes do have +1 air weapons, and Phoenixes, yeah, you do want to be kiting with them. But in a direct head-on engagement, Phoenixes actually don't do that bad against Beetleus. Especially if you're leading on upgrades, those +1 air weapons actually help out the Phoenix so unbelievably much. Because each time
Yeah.
they attack, they're actually attacking twice. You're getting more than just +1 attack for each attack. You're actually getting +2.
Yeah, and right now it looks like there's not actually too many Mulisks alive anymore. So the Phoenix right now are
Well,
actually on, at least for the Mulisks that were at his bases, there weren't
yeah.
too many. So he was on pretty much equal number there. But the reinforcements are going to be coming out here. We're actually going to be getting double Spire, so he's really going into this Skyzerg tech.
Oh man, I almost called him Sybil. Once Spinol actually realizes this, he's gonna need to drop that fleet beacon down. Yeah, he does, as he sees more and more Mutals coming out to accompany the Mutals that were already getting picked off, and Spinol needs to get up that extra upgrade for the Phoenix just to add that extra range, because it is so important to try and take cost-effective engagements against that. The Corruptor is gonna be coming out, so I would say that Jig is not in a bad position by any means, because he still has a very healthy drone count. He still has 4 bases. He's still pretty much untouched. But it's going to be very much a control-based thing. And oh my god, speaking of control-based and just positioning, these Mutals are very, very much catching the Phoenix out of position.
Yeah, and right now these Phoenix, they're pretty fast units, but they're not, they're still going to have a bit of trouble. And now there's even some Corruptors in here. They're going to be able to deal with these Phoenix pretty easily as there are armored units. So Phoenix, they just don't deal amount of damage that they need to. Mothership Core goes down, front and overcharge. Very clutchly put down though. But right now we're going to be getting up that Phoenix range upgrade.
Wait. Master Dog. Did Warpgate Tech not ever get researched?
It did not. He
Oh
was
my God.
he wanted +1 air weapons, and he's going Sky Toss, so he doesn't actually need Warpgate too much. You know, it would be good to have, definitely, but I get he just prioritized the +1 air weapons, and it was able to help and keep him alive this long because his Phoenixes were quite delayed for the start.
Honestly, right now, like, I agree with you. I think it's kept him alive for quite a bit. And Jing is doing a great job still actually harassing and everything right now. So I think it's okay. But, oh my God, the Phoenix upgrade! The Phoenix upgrade! Oh!
No! GG!
Oh! Immediately just realizing there was nothing that you could really do without the Phoenix upgrade. It was getting a little bit too ridiculous with the Mutila's count.
Yeah, and losing that fleet beacon, his upgrade was so close to finishing, and he would have been able to deal with those units so much easier, but unfortunately, just the cards weren't in his hand at the time, and he just couldn't get the hand that he wanted to play. So, valiant effort again, but that's gonna be it for game one. And we're gonna have to see, will he be able to pull it back for game number 2, which is gonna be on Catalina, it seems.
Indeed it is. And this is, in fact, a best of 3 for anyone wondering. And I think you were saying that the finals are also, the grand finals, the winner of this match will play against DesRow. Is that also a best of 3 you were saying?
At least from my memory, in Skyzo Cups in the past, it's been best of 3s for grand finals as well, because it is double elimination. And in most Skyzo Cups, they've actually had their bracket reset anyways. And Quebec City is actually, you know, not the closest thing to Montreal where a lot of these players are coming from. So
Yeah.
having a bit of an earlier drive is always nice for a lot of these players.
All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and jump into this next game and introduce players as the game is loaded up. And we spawn down here in the bottom right-hand side of the map, Catalina, top of the blue Zerg player representing Team Gravity and currently up 1-0. It is Jig.
And over at our 1 o'clock position on Catalina, we've got our yellow Protoss player representing Armata Gaming. He is down 0-1. It is Spynol.
That's a really cool looking team decal? Yeah, the team decal.
Yeah. Armata Gaming actually has like just a really sick logo, which is what we're looking at right now. It's always been very interesting to look at.
All right. Well, Spynol going to be going for the ball-in at the front, going for that natural expansion. So probably going to be a nice old Forge fast expansion. And I don't know, Master Dog, we've talked about how Jig likes to be aggressive. He likes to do weird things. He went for the early pull in the last game. Would you say that it was a success? And would you like, I don't know, to see something else kind of weird coming out? Like maybe after he takes his natural expansion, make 12 Zergans and try and, like, I don't know, put pressure on the natural or the third expansion of Spynol. Like, is there anything that you'd like to see out of Jig like that?
I just like seeing Jig. Because
Good answer.
He does so many things that, like, I've never had to be like, Jig, can you go this because I've seen so much of this other thing today? No, he's always just been like, I'm just gonna do this thing, and then I really enjoy it. So I've always appreciated his play. So I would like to see, though, more aggressive play. It does seem like Spynol, he was kind of thrown off, and he also is a very greedy player from games that I've seen of him in the past. Again, with the Nexus first here, so aggression is just always a very good choice against players like these. And Jig, of course, is a very aggressive player with that as well. And last game, I would say that early pull did help quite a bit, because it just, I want to say shocked Spynol, and it delayed his natural so much that his Stargate came out late, and his number of Phoenixes was also a bit low for the time that the game was at.
Yeah, honestly, I would say the thing that kept Spynol in that last game was his amazing ability to just read into the situation beyond the knowledge he should actually have. He didn't have confirmation that there was some sort of Spire tech coming out, but he had a feeling. And
Yeah.
that was what kind of kept him in. The opening really did go well for Jig. It went really well for Jig and pretty terribly for Spynol. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see. It doesn't look like Jig's going to be doing anything of the sort, at least not just yet. He's going to be sending a couple of these Zerglings across the map, but I mean, this Photon Cannon is going to be finishing up just a couple seconds too late.
Yeah, the Zerglings are going to be able to get in. The Overlord is going to be able to run, but they are only 2 Zerglings. It's more of just a scout at this point. And we do see Spynol. He will be able to get his Cybernetics core down at a much, much earlier time compared to last game. Actually, Jig, he's doing a pretty good job bottlenecking those Zerglings between the 2 mineral patches. If he gets a probe, that would be very good here.
Honestly, I think just being annoying is really, really good over here. Because, again, you're in the loser's bracket finals. You're one game away from being knocked out of the tournament. You want to go to those grand finals. You made it all the way through those loser bracket. And you want to go to the grand finals. And just all of these little annoyances, Jake just picking away with those Zerglings, it's annoying. And that can actually really play a big part in how this game actually ends up going for Spynol. Because the mental aspect of the game cannot be discarded.
Yeah. And, you know, Jig, he's been in these loser bracket positions before. It's nothing new to him. So I'd say he has a bit of a better mindset going into this compared to, say, Spynol, who's, personally, I haven't seen too much of him compared to Jig. And especially in Cups in the past, it's mainly been DesRow versus Jig. That was the Quebec rivalry going on for a while. And, you know, last Skyzo Cup, he did make it all the way through well, not all the way through, but he dropped down from winners finals into losers finals and then went into grand just to reset the bracket and win the whole thing. So I wouldn't be too surprised if he was able to do it again today.
Well, Spynol looks like he's going to be dropping down the Twilight Council, getting the +1 weapons, and I saw some Chronobus being thrown down on that Warp Gate technology. This is looking a lot to me like he wants to go for a bit of a Blink 2-base play. We'll have to see if that's going to be the case. Another Chronobus being dropped down on that Warp Gate technology. Dalk, this is feeling a lot to me like a big 2-base Blink Soccer play.
It definitely is. You know, we've got the Warp Gate this time around compared to last game.
Yeah, that's always a good start.
Yeah, and yeah, we've got the Blink coming out. It's getting Chrono Boosted fairly hard. See, number of gateways. So far, still only on the 1 gate. Probably should add in some more soon, but Overlord going to be able to find the Blink. We've got Roachhorn finishing up and Nebog Boost starting. I'd say about the time he saw that Twilight Council, as well as +1 missile attack, so I feel like Jig will be pretty prepped for it.
Jig should definitely know what's coming out, because, I mean, he saw the Chrono Boost down on the Twilight Council, he saw that the Forge was upgrading, and he should very much be anticipating this. The question is, can he actually react properly? Because even if you see Blink Stalker pushes coming, it isn't always the easiest thing to defend against. A lot of gateways being added on over here for Skyzo, and a Dark Shrine coming out. This is very interesting.
Yeah, and this build can be very interesting because there's a lot of options that come out from it. You have the Blink Stalkers to deal quite a bit of the early damage. You also have Dark Templar at your availability as well, and those can even morph into Archons once the DTs... If you see that your opponent has the detection, you know, morph them into Archons, you get a ton of area of effect damage as well, and they can support the Blink Stalkers so much. And especially since you aren't using sentries, having the force fields go away because the Archon stepped over them isn't a problem here.
This is going to be a really interesting situation, because the thing is, when you go for that Dark Shrine, you're going to have less gas to actually invest in your Stalkers, and that's why we have Spynol off of just 6 gateways, but don't... I mean, 6 gateways is actually a normal amount to maybe try and take a third off of, but don't be fooled. Right now, if he's going to try and morph in 1 or 2 DTs, send them over to the main base during the engagement, it's going to be another story, but oh my god, these Zerglings trying to get right on top of the Stalkers. They get into a pretty good position, but the Time Warp actually is working out relatively well as well.
Plus, also, we've got +1 weapons here finished up for Spynol, so it's just a lot more damage getting added in, along with the fact that the Time Warp was there. It just made it so much easier for Spynol to engage, but this
Oh.
time around, he's got no time warp. He's also a little bit out of position, but he's got Blink, so he will be able to escape, but he won't quite be able to engage it head up for now, but he's got some more stalkers. He's even got a DT kind of just mixed in there.
The thing is right now, Dog, is that the pylon got picked off, and that is the big thing that's hurting Spynol right now. Those DTs are supposed to be moving into the main base right now, while Spynol is sitting outside the third expansion of the natural expansion and keeping all those units, keeping all that attention for Jig there. But now Jig, I mean, he's kept this entire army pushed back. He's shut down the proxy pylon. Spynol has to walk all of his reinforcing units all the way across the map. There's already Hydralisks out for Jig.
Yeah, Jig, he's really been able to prep for this. He saw that Twilight Council, so he knew what was happening, especially seeing that there was only the one gateway at the time. So he knew stuff was going to be coming his way.
Burrow!
You know, it didn't quite go right over it, so it's not the best idea to burrow, but he will unburrow as he's got reinforcements coming in the front, gets rid of the Mothership Core, an amazing pickoff, but he doesn't have the detection. The DTs are ripping into these so much.
That is so many DTs right now, Dolk. And where exactly is the Overseer? Do we have one? We have two Overseers out on the map. One of them is coming over to the third expansion. The other, it looks like it's going over to the natural expansion. So he should be able to pick off these DTs. And with that, this pushes power, the big power unit. The DTs are going to be gone. It's just a handful of Stalkers left over.
Roach Hydra versus just a ton of Stalkers. You know, it normally goes in favor of the Roach Hydra because Stalkers, again, just very much a glass cannon. They need a bit more DPS added in. He's got another set of DTs mixed in here, but Jig has the Overseers. He's not afraid of the DTs anymore. He can push forward, and he is pushing forward. He's got a lot of Zerg units streaming across the map as well, and he might actually just counter push all the way up in towards Spynol's base.
Yeah, the thing is right now, Dolk, is honestly, I feel like Jig doesn't actually have that amazing of an economy. He's still sitting on 53 drones, but he's just such a power army. And I feel like, you know what, if Spynol could find some miracle way, like this actually, take an engagement over here, he might actually be able to somehow hold on, try and get out some other form of tech. It's going to be difficult, but he's doing a pretty good job of it so far.
Right now, though, these Stalkers, the blink is starting to run out. They've all been cramped into one area. And the Roach Hydra, they kind of were able to move up there, but unfortunately with no reinforcements for Jig. Yeah, with no reinforcements for Jig, Spynol will be able to push away Jig just for now, but we do have some more units. They're going to try streaming away. And engagements like this, where you can pick off a Stalker or two for free, basically, those are going to be what's helping him.
Yeah. One Warp Gate and a Cybernetics Core get deep power, but do not fret, do not frown if you're a Spynol fan. He has added on 3 more gateways during the midst of that attack. He is up to a solid 9 Warp Gates. So yeah, you actually do not need this extra Warp Gate, Spynol. You actually can't afford to produce off of 9 Warp Gates on 2 bases.
Yeah, and that is actually a lot of Stalkers. They're going to be moving down the ramp. Nice Blink Micro coming out from Spynol. Going to be able to keep a lot of the Stalkers alive, actually, but there are quite a few Hydralisks. And these Stalkers, you know, he had the Blink Micro, but Blink has a cooldown. It'll only last so long.
I think the engagement positioning was also not exactly in favor of Spynol. Spynol already down 1 game. This is a best of 3. He's fighting for his life right now. He's warping as many units as he can off of those 9 warp gates, but it's just not going to be enough. The Hydrals are overpowering him. He's going to be taking the natural expansion, and it looks like Spynol's tournament life is going to be out.
And that's going to be it. GG, Spynol. He's going to have to settle with 3rd place for today in Skyzo Cup number 10. I would say, though, a pretty good showing. He's not a player that you hear a lot about from the Quebec scene. So it's always nice to, get these other names coming in. He actually made it up all the way into winner's semifinals, but then lost to Jig there. And it kind of feels almost like closure, where he would actually lose to Jig in the losers finals as well to end his tournament run. But GG, and we're going to be getting back into that same matchup we see so much from Quebec of DesRow versus Jig.
And Dulk, I'm going to cut you off there because I do want to, before we jump into the grand finals, give a huge shout out to the sponsors of the Skyzo Cup number 10. And actually, I think of most of the previous ones. It is MSI. So guys, please stick around, check out this commercial by MSI, and we're not really running any other commercials on the actual channel, so just stick around and check them out, and I highly recommend you guys go Google MSI and check out the actual products that are being talked about in the video. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back and hopefully going to be jumping into the grand finals of the Skyzo Cup number 10. Once again, my name is Fear Dragon, and today I'm joined here by Master Dalk. Dalk, how has your day been going so far?
It's been going pretty good. I got a lot of work done, and then, I got to cast some amazing Quebec StarCraft, and I'm going to get to cast some more amazing Quebec StarCraft here. We're going to be getting into DesRow versus Jig. This is a pretty familiar matchup for myself, as well as many other Canadians, and especially for the Quebecois, as it's their DesRow and Jig, they're kind of their top players that they've got right now. And, for the moment, we've got DesRow with a 13-11 map score lead up against Jig. It was 11-11 before today, but after that 2-0 in winners finals, DesRow got the lead again, and he's hoping to keep it.
Oh my god, it was a 2-0, wasn't it? I keep thinking it was a 2-1 for some reason. I guess it was because it looked like Jig was doing so well in game number 1. Okay, this is the game number 3 that Jig needed. He made it through the losers bracket over Skyzo. Skyzo played really well, but unfortunately Jig played just a little bit better today, and Jig is going to get that second opportunity against DesRow. This is exactly what he needed. Those games between Jig and DesRow were so unbelievably close. As you were saying, the map scores between these guys really, really close. 13-11. It was previously 11-11. So, you know what? This could be Jig's chance to even that back up. 13-13. Take the grand finals in 2-0 fashion. If it is a best of 3, let's actually get confirmation on that. Whether it's a best of 3 or best of 9.
Well, yeah, I'm pretty sure it'd be best of 3. It could be best of 5, and then just have 2 best of 5s if Jig did win the first one. So, yeah, we'll figure that out, and then we'll be hopping into game number 1 for these grand finals here. So far, it's been a pretty good day, I'd say. We got a lot of good matchups. I was able to jump into...
A lot of good match-up.
Well, no, because I should mention this. For most of the Skyzo Cups that I've casted so far, I'll, hop into games beforehand, because there's so few games that we actually cast from the whole tournament that... especially for players that I haven't gotten to see before, it's just good research because it's like, oh hey, can I watch you because I'm casting you later? Sure, and I get to do that. So, at least for me, it's been pretty good.
Yeah, that actually sounds really awesome. And by the way, guys, just like shout out to first of all Skyzo and obviously for running this event, but just shout out to just community LAN events everywhere. It's really really awesome to see more of these kind of popping up all over the place, especially in Canada. I know Master Dog, you are a huge advocate of a lot of the lands in Canada. But these kind of places, these are the places where you can start to see some of those new up and coming players coming out, like Jig. I think that Jig, he's still sort of making a name for himself in the more global scene, but you're right, he is one of the top players in this kind of local French Canadian scene. And there's also players like oh my god, I think kept calling him Skyzo, didn't I?
I think you did, yes.
Spynol, the Protoss player that we just saw. He played really well, to be entirely honest, and I'm really especially impressed with the fact that, like, game number 1, he was in such an awkward position after the early pool. He had no vision, he had no way of scouting out, but he had a very good read on the situation. And that's actually something that, if you follow, like, fighting games, that's something that's really important, being able to read your opponent. You don't necessarily have this guaranteed knowledge that my opponent is going to do X and I should do Y, but you get the feeling. You get a good read on your opponent either through studying from him before or whatever, just picking out very small, subtle hints. And that's actually something really cool. I don't get to see that in StarCraft enough. So I really, really hope that we end up seeing more from Spynol, maybe even in a more global scale, because these are the kind of places where you can start to prove yourself and prove that, you know what? I have what it takes to compete with some of these great players. I'm on top of my local scene.
Yeah, and you know, these two players, DesRow and Jig, they, again, as we've said, they've kind of been at the top of Quebec, and I would say they're actually their representatives when it comes to a national scale, at least, because I know DesRow and Jig, they're actually going to be coming over with Mammoth and Sleeper, all from Quebec, and they're going to be coming over to represent Quebec in LAN Nation, which is a LAN festival in Toronto this coming up weekend. So, you know, if you like these local StarCraft events, definitely try to look for some in your own community, and also just keep an eye out for local StarCraft events happening all over the world, especially, you know, with Team Liquid, with Reddit, and also Facebook as well. It's very easy to find them nowadays.
Yeah, there's a ton of different places that you can find them, and you'd actually be surprised. Even if they're not local, like, competitions, there's tons of barcrasts and all kinds of fun stuff. Just get involved in your local scenes. Doesn't matter if you're in Canada, the United States, France itself. Like, maybe you're not French Canadian, maybe you're actually just French. But with that being said, we won't delay this any longer, guys. We're going to jumping into the series that we introduce the players as we spawn up here in the top left-hand corner. Top of the orange Protoss player, currently teamless, but representing Aces. It is DesRow.
And over on the bottom right, we've got our blue Zerg player. He lost to DesRow in the winners finals. He's come down to the losers finals. Can he make a repeat of Skyzo Cup number 9 and win it in the reset? It is Gravity's Jig.
And I'm very sorry, guys. I do apologize that we're not entirely sure exactly if the format is best of 3 or best of 5 for the finals. We will get confirmation that as soon as possible, but regardless, game number 1 is hugely important, regardless of whether it's a best of 3 or best of 5, because it's a trendsetter. It's what you use to kind of say, like, look, this is going to be the pace of it. Is this going to be Jig's sort of turnaround moment where he gets that big momentum swing and says, you know what, I may have made some mistakes that I regret in the winners finals, but I'm back, and I just played the ZVP, and it went really, really well. And now I'm gonna repeat that on you.
Yeah. And, you know, again, this is double elimination. So, Jig, as you said, he does have that bit of confidence after just winning a PBZ 2-0. But DesRow, he's going to be feeling a little bit more comfortable coming into the series because he has the ability to lose 2 whole games, even 3 if he feels like it, before having to actually worry about winning if he wants to. He's very much in a comfortable position because of that winner's bracket advantage. And Jig, no, he has to be on point right off the bat.
Yeah, and I think actually you're right. At least people in the chat are also saying that it is 2 best of 3s that you have to lose.
Yeah,
so.
That's what I'm pretty sure as well, because I did. Most Skyzo Cups have had just double best of 3 if losers bracket player won the first one.
All right, well, let's take a look at what these players are doing, because Jig actually did open up with a 3-hatch before pool. It's, I used to think about 3-hatch before pool. Oh my god, so greedy. How can he be so ballsy and want to try and do something like that? But now these days, I feel like we start to see it more and more often. I think Protoss players have gotten better at reacting to it. They gotta say, you know what, that's fine. I'll put on a little bit of light pressure, maybe with some early gateway units, chrono boost out maybe a couple more probes, or I'll just decide to go a little bit more all in. Like, I think Protoss players have figured out how to deal with this, and it's not that crazy anymore.
Yeah, like it's definitely it's kind of like the HOTS metagame in general. Before it was so topsy-turvy, so many things were happening, and so many things no one would know how to do. But especially now that it's been a good year, and actually a year and a quarter of a year as well, now that HOTS has come out, it's definitely been a bit more stabilized. People are more comfortable in their builds. But the thing is, though, is that we've had a lot of maps mainly. That's what's been throwing up the metagame. But these two players are going to be on a much more comfortable position as King Sejong Station. It's been in the pool for a little while already, so it's not going to be as much of a throw up as, say, Deadwing or Foxtrot Labs.
Yeah, I like what Jig is doing already. He's getting that 6-minute Roachborn after seeing the gateway wall-in from DesRow. Because there is something that you have to be concerned about whenever you see a Protoss player going for the sort of gateway expansion. That's the early zealot pressure that you can do off of just 3 or potentially 4 gateways. And oftentimes the Protoss players will try and hide some of those gateways in their main base. So you have to be a little bit careful about it. He gets up the Roachborn nice and early and should be more than prepared to deal with it. Overlook comes in over here to the main base, trying to get a scout off, but he isn't going to see anything really out of the ordinary. He sees that there's Chrono Boost going down on the Nexus. Yeah, and that can be a little bit revealing and say, like, look, he doesn't look like you're going to be facing off against a huge 2-base all-in, but it's still a little bit too early to tell, because there's still Chrono Boost saved up, actually.
Yeah, but, he has been able to see that the Forge has been Chrono Boosted as well with it, and that is going to be the big teller. He's had that Overlord by that natural, and he was just able to see, oh, you're making a lot of sentries, and you're getting +1 weapons. So, it's something that Jig's going to have to think about.
Yeah, and honestly, right now, we have a Twilight Council coming out from DesRow. And actually a 3rd expansion being taken. So the 3rd expansion is interesting, because for a little bit, just before he was taking that 3rd, he actually cut probe production for a little bit. But it looks like he's resumed it. He's saying, okay, you know what, I am going to go back for that 3rd expansion. I was thinking that maybe it was just like a fake out 3rd, but no. He's just going to be going for a sort of more defensive blink. Maybe he'll put on a little bit of pressure with it, but this is not an all-in.
Yeah, DesRow, he's really just trying to try something new. And again, these players have seen each other so much that DesRow, he's a bit of a more standard player. He does similar things throughout series. He's very much a player that you can study what he's going to do. And you'll kind of get a feel for him. Unlike Jig, where excuse me, he'll do whatever he feels like at the time. Yeah. So definitely trying to change things up here, getting that 3rd, getting the Twilight Council at the same time. Definitely very good, and it'll also allow him to keep his upgrades going, which will be very helpful against roaches.
Yeah, it's actually really, really nice for a Protoss player to keep those upgrades, just staying a bit ahead. Now, I am kind of curious, because in game number 2, I think, game number 2 or game number 1 of DesRow versus Jig, the first time we saw it, DesRow opted to go for those more old school, like Wings of Liberty style that I'm trying to remember the Protoss, but I cannot remember the name of him for the life of me. I think it was Genius, but basically the idea was, you think so?
Yeah, I think so.
It was like this Colossus-less PvZ style. And the idea is that you get up a lot of Immortals, you get up a decent number of sentries early on, but then you basically just make Blink Stalkers, you make eventually Archons, and you get up a lot of Immortals. And you just have enough power units that you don't actually need that much splash damage to deal with a Zerg army.
Yep, but right now, it looks like Jig, he's going to be trying to hit before those power units can come out. A lot of good force fields will come out, and it will kind of delay Jig's ability to deal a lot of damage all at the same time. But right now, the Immortal, it has come out up on the high ground of the natural, but the door is going to be open, and a lot of roaches, they're just walking right in. The Immortal is actually going to
Oh,
go up to the high ground. It should go down, though. The roaches are giving so much chase. It will die. But, you know, there's so many roaches still alive here for Jig. DesRow, he's looking to be able to hold it, but it's going to be pretty close.
it's been very costly in terms of the army that he's had to sacrifice to do so. And the thing is, Jig is buying himself a lot of space right now. Behind this, the Spire is going up. He has a 4th expansion already fully established that DesRow does have vision of, but even more roaches are actually managing to make their way across the map. And if Jig actually just backs up with some of these roaches, he may actually be able to re-engage this army, although I think the Immortal may change that, the dance or the jig of that.
Yeah, and right now, the roaches, they've only got +1 missile attacks, whereas DesRow, he's finished up +2 weapons now for his ground units. So Jig definitely going to have to pull back after seeing his opponent's army is just so strong right now. That with that Immortal, he's going to have to try and get up some Hydralisks, get up some units that aren't just roaches, just to add in a bit more DPS, as well as, of course, making a lot more roaches just to keep his army beefy.
Yeah, Jig is gonna have to make sure he does keep getting up some army units, but honestly, he's looking pretty solid in my opinion right now. He's getting up all the tech that he really needs. He's getting up the Hydralist Den actually as well, and has +1. Wait, did you? I'm sorry. Did you actually talk about the fact that the Spire is hidden in the top right-hand corner of the map?
Oh no, but I'm sorry, I should have, because I'm just a little used to seeing that, because in Skyzo Cup 9, I believe it was, Jig actually did the same thing on Frost,
Oh
so
my god.
yeah, again, Jig, he's that player. You don't know quite what's going to happen, but right now we've got a lot of roaches coming in. The main army is going to be distracted, but there's a lot of roaches heading into the third. The Nexus is getting targeted down. A lot of damage is being dealt. It's very possible that it could go down. It's under half health, and it will go down.
Oh.
And that is a supreme pick-off here for Jig. And now we've even got Mulists going to be coming into the natural. Lots of damage being dealt. 56 Zerglings on the way, and Jig, he's going into full-on aggression mode.
Oh man, DesRow, it feels like he's kind of floundering right now, and I don't really blame him. This definitely caught him very off guard. The roaches being able to pick out that 3rd expansion, that puts DesRow into a very quote-unquote all-inish position. He doesn't have that 3rd. He suddenly has to make damage happen, the counter damage. And right now, I don't know if he has the army that he can deal with the roaches. He can't really deal with an overwhelming number of Mutalisks, though.
Yeah, and you know, his main is no longer mining. He doesn't have a 3rd. He's practically on 1 base for the time being. The Mulists, they're going to be trying to deal some damage in the natural now, but there are quite a few Zerglings and Roaches over here at the natural. Those force fields are abundant for our Protoss player, and the Mulists, it looks like they're going to be trying to pull home. Right now, there's only 29 workers for DesRow. It's a 60 or 70 for Jig.
Oh, I don't like this from Jake. He should let DesRow come to him. He has the time. He just needs to try and hold on. Don't try and engage too early. He loses a lot of those mules and gets a lot of his units trapped in. The one way that Jake can, I feel, lose this game right now is if he takes a bad engagement and go. But getting on top of the Immortals, that is working out pretty well for him.
And he's going to lose all the Immortals. DesRow, his worker counts have fallen so much due to the Mulists. And GG from DesRow. Jig going to take game number 1 in the first best of 3 of the Grand Finals. And, you know, I was going to say, he has to be right on point from right off the bat. And I have to say, he's looking that way.
He's looking like he actually can try and make this comeback happen. Now only, I guess, if you were saying it was 13-11 after the last series, now it is 13-12 between these two guys. So, I don't know, Dulk, it's looking like we could see the big comeback, and that would actually be so cool to see.
Yeah, but, you know, DesRow, he's very much a player where he doesn't like being down even 1 game. I did say at the beginning of the first game that, he can... he's in a bit of more comfortable position because he does have that winner's bracket advantage. He could just lose this entire best of 3, but he doesn't like doing things like that. And in Skyzo Cup number 9, on Yeonsu, I believe it was game 2 of the first best of 3 of Grand Finals, he just went straight for a cannon rush, but Jig did cannon rush, or was it proxy 2 gate? One of the other. But Jig was able to deal with it fairly easily and then reset the bracket. And we're going to have to see if, you know, DesRow, he's going to be trying to pull out some shenanigans here for game number 2 in this best of 3. But We're going to be getting into it on merry-go-round, spawning on top of our blue Zerg player representing Team Gravity. It is Jig.
And his opponent spawning up on the right-hand side, in the top right-hand side of the map, is going to be as the orange Protoss player, orange Bluetoss player, orange Protoss player. It is DesRow.
Now, Ravi, I don't know if you quite caught it, but we've got a pylon scout coming straight off from DesRow here.
Ooh, well, that's going to be pretty nice. DesRow can be very, very annoying with that, but he's not going to actually scout the right position the first time. So if Jake decides to go for the hatch first, he can get that down before that probe ever actually gets there. Now the question is, does DesRow still go for a Nexus first, or does he go for a Forge first?
You know, that's going to be the question. He's not going to be able to find his opponent straight off the bat. So if he was hoping to go for some cheesy plays, he's not going to quite be able to get it on time as Jig. He's very close to going hatch first, as might even... No, I wouldn't say it would be 3 hatch before pool, just because merry-go-round it's such a large map, but it still is a possibility. But we are going to be seeing pool first here. Got the probe coming down, and it is going to be Forge first coming out from DesRow. We've got a second probe heading out. I think we're getting some cannon.
Oh, well, I think that DesRow may be a little bit disappointed over here, because the spawning pool first makes this so much harder to actually make work, and there's not even an attempt to take the natural expansion yet. This isn't because Jig is going for some kind of all-in. It's just, oh, Jig, he hides the drone just south of the probe, actually, and now he's going to be able to safely get up that hatchery. There's still potential for the cannons, especially with the second probe that had moved across the map, but the second probe is actually retreating back home.
Yeah. You know, he was gunning for those cannons, but it's a 3-player map, multiple spawns. It's very, very easy to just lose your way. And that's what happens. DesRow, he's just going to have to settle for dropping down that Nexus. He's going to have to get up his wall now. And this actually puts him a little bit behind, because his opponent's natural went up at the normal time. He's got the spawning pool up as well. Jig's not, like, DesRow was trying to get a lead with it, but nothing happened.
Yeah, I suppose, a little bit. I still think it's relatively even. I mean, Jig did go for the spawning pool first. He sort of delayed his natural expansion as well for a good bit of time. I don't think it's going to play too big of a role in the game so far. But yeah, I think for the most part, DesRow did want to try and get something to work. And, you know, if you also factor in the fact that that last game kind of didn't go exactly as he wanted it to, you know what? I think that this kind of things can add up for DesRow. You were already saying he's not a kind of player that likes to play from behind. Things are already kind of not going the way he wants them to. It can get into your head.
It definitely can, and right now, DesRow, you know, I'm not sure. It may be a little bit early, but I wouldn't be surprised if you start getting some flashbacks back from January. But Jig right now, he's getting up his third. He's getting up some queens here. Looks like his lair is going to be about normal time. Again, just enough. Jig, he's going to be playing his game. And the thing, Zerg is very much a reactive race. But Jig, not so much. With Jig, he's the one who's playing out the game. And if he's allowed to be the one that's setting the tone of the game, it just becomes very difficult, because then you end up having Protosses and Terrans playing the reactive side. And it's so weird to do, because you don't have much practice of playing as a reactive player.
Yeah, it's actually a really good point. That is what sort of makes Jig a more unique Zerg player. It's oftentimes, if you're more familiar with Stefano, it really does remind me of that, where he likes to set the pace of the game. And that is one of the things that made Stefano so strong. Players weren't used to playing against Zerg who were actually deciding how the game was going to go. He says, no, actually, I'm going to make so many roaches that you have to deal with whatever I want to do. You don't get to go for your build order and take it till the 17-minute mark and make some sort of big timing death push. You're going to have to deal with whatever units I make, and you're going to have to react to me. So I definitely agree. Yeah. I think that is one of Jig's greatest strengths in this. But I also kind of like what DesRow is doing right now. When you go for the Oracle opening, you can try and get a little bit of damage done, but it's really also nice for getting scouting. Like, I don't know if DesRow is actually the kind of player that isn't okay with playing a little bit more reactive.
I'd have to say that after playing Jig for so many times as he has, that he's definitely adapted the skill to play reactive,
Hmm.
as we do see, with the Oracle coming out. As you said, it's an ability to get some damage in no matter what time of the game it is. So long as there's not Spore Crawlers, you're usually okay. The Oracle's going to be able to come in, and unlike Spynol's attempt last series, he's actually going to be able to kill off some drones. The Queen will take off all the shields, though. Some more
Oh,
drones are going to
man.
be coming down, but with 2 Queens, he's going to have to pull back.
Oh,
It will go down, unfortunately.
last shot picks it off just barely, but I mean, still 7 drone kills, or sorry, 6 drone kills. Definitely not too bad for the Oracle, and I don't know, he gets a scout off in the natural expansion. He sees the gas geysers there, but I think he really did want to see, okay, where is your lair timing at? Do you have all 4 of your gas geysers at your main base also, or is it just 3? Like, there are a couple questions I think DesRow probably wanted to have answered with that Oracle that he didn't really.
Yeah, and right now, Jig, he's going to be able to get a pretty good scout off. Should be able to see that Twilight Council, and yeah, he will. And Humanized Carapace actually will give a little jump boost just to make sure he sees it. Third coming down from DesRow, but Jig's already got his down for quite a while. We're actually going to be seeing some... The Void Rays being incorporated, I'm not so sure about it, as we've got Hydralisks on the way. It's not a mainly Roach force, it's going to be Roach, or not Roach, Hydraling coming out of Jig.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting because, as you were saying, like, the Void Rays are there, but it's only one Void Ray, I think. I think this is more of a defensive. I'm taking a, a kind of fast third expansion. I think it went down, around 8 minutes or like 7 minutes or something. And it's really important to just have that extra defense against the Roaches. That is that consistent damage that the Roaches can't really take out, but look at this from Jig. Jig is so damn sneaky. And this is what you were talking about, Master Dalk. It's setting the pace of the game. He's going for the Nidus Network in a hidden location. Actually, Master Dalk, I'm really wondering about this Nidus Network. He has to get his units over there, so that proxying it doesn't actually make that much sense to me.
Well, it's more for reinforcements, because cutting down reinforcements time, and it doesn't actually matter because he wasn't using it as a reinforcement point. He's using it as a 2-prong attack point. He's going to be trying to get a Nidus Worm into the main. It's going to be tough. I don't think it's going to work. And yeah, it's going to go down. And we've got some Roaches and Hydras coming in towards the third base. Nidus Worm going to get trying to rebuild over in front of that third. A lot of Hydras have gone down so far in this engagement because of the photon overcharges of Mothership Core, however, has gone, or no, actually it's just barely alive, but the Nidus Worm's finished up here. A lot of Zerglings are going to be trying to come through. And I'm starting to see what you meant about that, the Nidus Network. It's making it tough because he can't get all of his units quickly over to where they need to be.
Yeah.
It's not really cutting any travel time down. Merry-Go-Round's a big map.
Yeah, it's increasing it in a sense because he has to travel all the way to his location. I mean, if you also factor in the fact that he has to go like up north and then move back down south, like it's maybe 75% of the distance that he'd have to cover anyways. And I feel like he would have been maybe a little bit better off if he just planted that Nidus Network down straight in between his third expansion, his natural expansion. Yeah, it may get scouted, but it still has the powerful effect of, hey, guess what? My units are right at your front door. There goes your quote-unquote defender's advantage.
Yeah. I know Ostagy, a Toronto player, he used to do a lot of Roachling-based Nidus plays. And it's kind of looking to be the same way here. But again, the Nidus Network is just so far. And the main base is also very covered in terms of vision that DesRow can just warp in some Zealots and take care of the Nidus Worm as it comes up. But DesRow actually, he's going to be getting a little trapped here by some Zerglings and Hydras in front of Jig's main base. Buffer, though, of the Zerglings is starting to go down. Roaches, they need to start coming out quick. Another Nidus Worm is going to try going down in the main base. No units are getting warped in, but I think there's two.
I think he already has those 2 Zealots there. The Nidus Worm will actually finish up this time, which is going to be a big difference from all the previous times. But no units are actually in it. That's the problem again. There is no units inside of the Nidus Network because it's too far away for him to actually reasonably put it there in a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah, and right now we're Jig, he's trying to get these Roach Hydras out, but he's also trying to get some Zerglings in and trying to keep the Stalkers in place. The Hydras, they're able to put in a good amount of DPS, but with the Blink Micro, it's making it really difficult to constantly have that stream of damage going Jig's way.
And, you know, the one thing Jig did have going for him was those high dose. They trade relatively cost effectively after the blink cooldown is gone, but DesRow's doing a pretty good job with the blink micro for the most part. He's keeping a majority of the stalkers alive, and now he's starting to push into the natural expansion. Drones are being pulled, and whenever that happens, it is never exactly the best sign. There's not even any kind of real supporting units, just like a handful of roaches to defend, but you know, he does hold on for a little bit longer. I don't know if he can hold on for very much longer, though, because these +2 missile attacks, or sorry, +2 weapons, ground units from DesRow, soon to be +3 weapons, like, the timer is actually just gonna, it's gonna be in favor of DesRow, because when +3 weapons finishes up, it's gonna become even harder to defend.
Yeah, roach speed has only just now been started. +2 weapons has finished up for missile attacks for Jig, and that will allow him to hold on for just a little bit longer, but lost so many more drones in that fight. And as you said, it's going to be +3 now, and Jig, he's just been having this thing where he'll even up the upgrades, but then very shortly it'll go back in DesRow's favor. And right now he has not too many roaches and hydras to deal with this large amount of stalkers. And right now DesRow is powering through. Jig's supply is plummeting.
DesRow smells blood right now. He's saying, you know what, I beat you once before, I can do it again. He's added on 3 more warp gates. He's not looking to take a 4th expansion. He's looking to take the game right here, right now, as he ties up the series in the grand finals 1-1.
Yeah. And now Jig is 1 game away from losing the grand finals, whereas DesRow, if he loses it, he just gets to try and come back with a fresh slate. With a second best of 3.
And, oh man, it's going to be really tough for Jig. Because, again, it's like you were saying, like, you have to win this next game. You have to win this next game. There's no other options. DesRow has the other option. Like, he can try something maybe a little bit risky if he feels like he wants to take it that best, you know, that next best of 3. Or just take an easy win. I feel like DesRow's not the kind of player who's likely to do it. So I'm actually expecting still standard play out of DesRow. I think that's honestly his sort of more strong point. But it's still like, it's one of those things where Jig still has like a long road ahead of him. Having to play another best of 3, that's like winning an entire another series, right?
Yep. Now you did mention about how DesRow most likely is going to be sticking to the standard, but I wouldn't be too surprised if we did see like a proxy 2 gate come out, because it's just, I've seen it work before. Like, for example, in Kings of the North, a Canada only tournament, ES Champ ran back in April and May. DesRow, he beat Saravati by going for a proxy 2 gate on Habitation Station. And Overgrowth, it's a pretty small map like Habitation Station, so it's fairly easy to just have a probe come all the way down, set up a pylon, get in quite a bit of damage.
It's definitely possible. It's a different matchup, so I'm torn. I have seen Proxy 2 gates work in PvZ before, though, so we'll wait and see as we go ahead and jump into the game, introduce the players, and spawn up here in the top right-hand corner of the map, Overgrowth. Currently tied 1-1, representing Team Gravity. It is Jig.
Yep. And over on the bottom left, we've got our orange Protoss player representing Asus Chairs for Gaming and Corsair. It is DesRow.
And once again, DesRow going for that pylon on the low ground, going for the most likely Forge Fast expansion. And I just want to say that I think he's done this almost every game. Almost every game against Jig. And I feel like it's the safer play against a Zerg that you think is going to be going for potentially early pools. Because, I mean, we saw it in game number 1 of Jig versus Spynol? Spiegel? Spynol, right.
Yes.
Jig versus Spynol, we saw him go for the early pool. And it worked out pretty well because he really was prepared for it. He went for the Nexus first and everything. DesRow, he oftentimes has just been going, once again, for the Forge first, before the Nexus or anything. He's always been playing it a little bit on the safer side. So we kind of talked about how there's cannon potential when you go for the Forge first. That's true. But I also just want to say, like, I think it's kind of cool because it is also a safer play against early pools.
And right now, we've got A second probe coming on the way. Pylon, come on. Yes! We've got it. Cannon's gonna be coming.
Oh, he didn't
Finally.
see it. He sent out the
The
drone.
hatchery. He won't see it. Hatchery's being built. It has a very limited sight range. That drone was just on the regular path to go to the third. It's gonna go around. It's not gonna see that pylon. We're gonna have some cannons right here in the natural. Spawning pool
Oh,
isn't even down yet. And you know what? This is actually really bad for Jig.
DesRow is going to be throwing up the 2 photon cannons. He should have realized now, like, okay, your spawning pool is really late. Your natural expansion's gone. I don't even need to commit any more cannons to that. Just 2 cannons is the safe play over there. Jig is finally going to actually pull some of those drones. He can cancel this natural expansion. I like that he does that at the last second just to get a vision of it. No, he's not going to cancel it.
Nope. He doesn't need to. He has his third on the way. Realistically, if he can just keep the second probe down from, like, prevent it from dropping cannons, he'll be perfectly safe. He can use his third, get some Zerglings out, get a Queen out, and then try and deal with the cannons there. But I don't know what Jig's supposed... It's looking really difficult for Jig to deal with these cannons at his natural.
I really
down.
don't like the decision not to cancel this expansion. I mean, I don't feel like he's really buying that much time or anything, right? Like, wouldn't you prefer to have 225 extra minerals? You can use that to maybe try and take a different expansion on the map. Maybe try and take the gold expansion where this probe from DesRow is, I think, honestly expecting that. For this hatchery to go down over the gold. And actually, finally, Jig is now sending a drone over there. Sees the probe over there, he's just like, nope, never mind.
Yeah, and, you know, this was actually just an immaculate amount of reads just chaining up for DesRow here. He knew that it was going to be 3 hatch before pool on this map because DesRow hasn't been doing anything like proxies or any of that sort in previous games all day today, at least on the stream. And you know what? Jig, he was like, okay, DesRow's not going to do what he did back in January against me. But then DesRow, because he knew Jig was feeling safe, he's just going to go right out and do it. And now this probe, these set of probes, the amount of map control that DesRow has garnered just from having 2 cannons and a pylon down, killing off the entire natural, was ridiculous. But Jig, you know what? He doesn't care. He knows he needs 3 bases, and he needs it quickly. He's going to steal his opponent's gold.
This is interesting. Okay. Here's a little bit of talk from a Protoss perspective when you're facing off against a Zerg player. One of the scariest things about facing off against Zergs is sometimes it feels like you don't really have a lot of map control or map vision against a Zerg player after there's some kind of crazy shenanigans that happen. Whether it be you went for cannons early on, whether it be you went for some kind of, you know, early pressure play. If it doesn't end the game, oftentimes the Zerg player is the one that ends up getting the map control. Because you do have to sacrifice certain things to make that kind of early aggression happen. And here's the thing, I don't think that this expansion gets scouted out by DesRow for quite a while. I actually think DesRow, he's going to send out this early zealot, but there's already a lot of drones transfer. Wait, there's drones transferring?
Yeah.
Oh my god, DesRow sees a drone. He saw a drone, but he didn't react to it.
The Zealot saw the drone, not quite DesRow, unfortunately. He will be able to take the Zelnaga Tower, so if even a single drone comes down there, that's going to be a big tell for DesRow. But the fact that all of these drones have made it to that gold expansion is amazing for Jig. He has not only a forward reinforcement point, he also even has a lot of mineral income.
The Mothership Core sees creep! Is he paying attention? He's moving to the Mothership Core back! I don't think he realizes it!
He's just gonna send it back because he's throwing these cues down. I'm not sure if just like his monitor might be a little bit too dark that he couldn't see the stream. But right now we're gonna have 7 roaches come out, and you know what? There's gonna be a sentry. There's a couple sentries already out though for DesRow, so he's gonna have these force fields. He's gonna have them.
Oh my god! I just want to really quickly say, Jig is already doing something really smart as well. He's actually left 3 roaches back out of his third. I think that he's doing that because there is still that proxy pylon with the 2 cannons. He wants to make sure there's no potential for proxy, zealot, warpins, or whatever that could be going on over there. And yeah, he's finally going to get up some of those roaches to take out that proxy pylon. And once that's done, you could actually even try and start to get a little bit aggressive. DesRow doesn't realize, he probably imagines that his opponent has a 3rd expansion, but I don't think he probably doesn't know that it's at his own gold.
Um, apologies for just being so giddy, but this is the kind of thing I was talking about earlier in the broadcast. Jig, I never know what to expect from him, and I never want anything from him because he just gives it to me anyways. We have so many roaches coming down the map right now, Ravi, and they're going to be able to deal a lot of damage with that hatchery being at the gold, which is just now
Oh.
finally scouted by the hallucinated phoenix. He's going to have larvae going to be able to start coming even closer. So units will be streamed, yes, but he's going to have 4 bases soon, and he's going to have a lot of units coming even quicker down for this. There are a lot of sentries and mothership core energy.
Yeah, I think that Jig is going to have a hard time pushing in over here. But with that gold expansion and now the ability to take a safe 4th expansion at your natural, I don't think Jig has to push in here. I think he just has to keep this as a contain, make sure that he doesn't overcommit, and keep an eye on these roaches, make sure that he doesn't get force filled in with a big push out from DesRow, because DesRow is actually kind of a victim of his own wall-in right now.
Yeah.
I feel like Jig he stays back. He knows that DesRow is going to have to try and push out through his own wall. Just make sure that he doesn't get to do that safely. He's doing a great job of it right now.
Yes, and DesRow, he's kind of pushed into the soft contain that, as you said, he's a victim of his own wall. The force fields are working in favor of Jig because there's not enough force fields anymore. And now Jig, he's still on the other side of the wall. He's able to run away. The photon overcharge was able to deal a lot of damage, but there are 20 more roaches going to be finishing up soon. We've got Blink on the way, and oh, these 2 stalkers and sentries, what are you doing? You're not supposed to be out that far. But with the wall going down, he will be able to finally leave his base, but Jig knows exactly where he's going. There's only one place he could go. It's to that gold base, and engaging on such an open plane like this with no force fields is really going to help Jig.
It's going to be very, very annoying and difficult for DesRow right now, but I also want to know, like, the robotic facility got actually depowered during that whole thing, so there's not any extra immortals. He's basically stuck on these 2 immortals. If he had been able to produce maybe 1 or 2 more immortals, he honestly could easily push into that gold expansion and probably take it out with just 2 or 3 force fields from those sentries. But now he doesn't really have that. He has to kind of wait around, get out another immortal, get another warping round. But now Jig has enough roaches to move in to both the natural expansion and try and defend his gold.
And right now, this 2-prong attack is going to be really difficult. We've got to blink forward. These roaches most likely aren't going to be able to live. And Jig, he's not quite able to push in. He will be able to get this probe over at the 3rd, but it's not going to be too much damage dealt. He will actually be able to catch some stalkers out at the front, but a quick blink back from DesRow, and now so many of the roaches finally going down. But, we've got Burr on the way, we've got Groove Spines as well, so I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing some Hydralisks start coming out here.
Zealot Harass actually going down over at the, I don't even know what to call it, the 3rd expansion of Jig. I guess it was the 2nd expansion. He gets the hatchery actually pretty low in health, and honestly, he now moves in. He actually gets a full evacuation out on the gold expansion. DesRow, he's actually doing a pretty good job right now. If he's able to now kill off a couple of these workers, but don't overextend yourself. Kill off that damn hatchery. Stop the larva production from over there. And if you can get the kill off of that other hatchery, he's going to be in a great position. But the roaches, they get right on top of all the sentries and the immortals.
Oh, one immortal is looking to go down, and it actually lives. It runs right
Look
back.
at those
The
force
force fields, they trap the roaches in a time warp on top of them as well, so they can't get out. And
GG!
Jig, will have to go out. DesRow claims the title of Skyzo Cup champion yet again here in Skyzo Cup numero 10.
And some absolutely fantastic play out of that last game from both of those players. Jig looked like he was doing this really, really great play. The gold expansion looked like it was paying off. He had a 4th expansion coming up as well. But DesRow, honestly, he did a great job punishing Jig for trying to do a little bit too much. We were talking about how Jig had enough roaches to move into the natural expansion and defend his gold expansion. But actually, after losing all those roaches in the natural expansion, I think Jig was underestimating how many roaches he would end up losing over there if DesRow was prepared, and DesRow was. And so were we a little bit. And the
Yeah.
losing all those roaches, that gave DesRow the opportunity
Man.
to push into that gold expansion, to get a full evacuation off, because he also used those 4 Zealots, pulled the entire army back to that 3rd expansion. And that gave him the opportunity to move into the gold expansion. And it was all about just positioning your units, pulling your opponent's army to the right location at the exact right time, and then immediately, no delay, and knowing what to do and enacting on it. So some really great play, and DesRow, again, as we were saying, taking the series 2-1 and coming from the winner's bracket. That's all he needed to do. So Jig played some great games. He looked like he was going to be able to maybe bring it back, but DesRow, man, he is on fire these days.
You know, Jig, back in January, I think it was mainly because he came off of winter break, I'd say, that he had this kind of uphill climb in terms of his ability. And it's not gone anywhere, but he's kind of plateaued so far. And Jig, he's this player that has so much potential, and we saw it there, with the decision to go to that gold base. That's something most players wouldn't do, and that's kind of where Jig shines. He does things that so many players just wouldn't do, and then you get amazing games like that. And well played to everyone that played in Skyzo Cup number 10. And of course, a big shout out to Le Skyzo. They are the LAN center that this is hosted at, and also MSI for sponsoring the tournament.
Yeah, and actually, I do want to thank you also, Master Dalek, for joining me for today's cast. I know it was a little bit on a last-minute notice. I know that normally I think it's ESC champ that ends up covering in these Skyzo Cups. Sorry, that's the American in me mispronouncing all you French
Skyzo,
Canadians with your crazy pronunciation for different words. But yeah, Master Dalek, where can people actually catch you at?
Well, they can find me on Twitter at MasterDalk, MasterDalk. It's right below me, underneath my webcam. And I gallivant around. Like today, I'm on Fear Dragon stream. Tomorrow, I'm going to be adminning Zowie and a Rumble. Then a week later, I'll be somewhere else. So following me on Twitter is usually a good way to keep up with me. And then, of course, Fear Dragon, they can follow you on Twitter as well, I believe.
Yeah, you can actually follow me over on Twitter, Twitch, your YouTube, all directly from this channel. If you just go ahead and hit that follow button, you'll follow me over here on Twitch. It's at FearDragon64 on Twitter and YouTube. You can actually find the links just down below the stream if you're interested, and actually do a show called Breaking Out about players that are up and coming in the North American scene. I think Jig is definitely also one of those players, so if you're interested in players like Jig, and you want to see more of them, definitely check out the show. I don't know if Jig is actually going to apply for this season, as you do need to register for it, but still, a lot of players like Jig, and also other Canadian players like Saravati and stuff. I think he was actually the winner of the first invitational that I held for them. But regardless, thank you all so much for tuning in. I want to give a huge shout out once again to MSI and actually DesRow, not only for winning the tournament, also for actually hooking me up to cast this. So big thank you and big shout out to DesRow. I know that he was also hosting this channel, so much love to him and much love to everyone that decided to stick around and check out the cast. That's going to be pretty much it. So one last shout out to MSI for sponsoring, and I'll play one last little ad from them. But that's going to be it from us, guys. Have a wonderful day, and enjoy the rest of the... I'm trying to think. Enjoy the rest of the French, you French Canadians. I don't even know. Enjoy the weather.
Merci pour regarder le Skyzo Cup numéro 10, et bonne nuit.